I'm
fair
sick
to
of I'm
Christian.
sick
I
of
don't
being
think you're being
accused
fair
of
to Christian.
talking over people when people are talking over me. I'm in the middle of making a point.
I am perplexed that you feel so confident to assert that someone's a sophist just because there was a confusion in language that the person who you think is a sophist did his best to get clarity about.
I don't
Sophists
believe
do
that.
the opposite.
Oh, what's
Hey
up, Christian?
now.
How you doing?
Hey,
How are
Christian.
you? How are you
Good.
guys doing? I'm all right. What's up? What's up?
Are you on camera? Maybe I'll,
I am not on camera. Should I be on camera?
if you want. Here, look,
It's up to you.
I can go on
Why
camera.
You don't have
not?
to be.
Why not?
I'm
I'm
right
not
here.
on
Hello.
camera.
How you doing? How you doing?
Good,
How are
good.
you,
Good.
Sitch? This is my
We-
first time on, by the way.
This is your first time on. We talked to you before though on Adam's channel.
I went on Adam's show. I went on
Yes.
Adam's show. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I don't remember what we talked about at all. So do you remember?
On Adam's show, we talked about a little bit of height,
Mhm.
natural law, the CRT debate that had happened back then.
Okay.
Because that was the Gothic CRT debate that
Oh, that's
Bolton-
what
That
we
was
watched.
it. The CRT debate.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Oh,
Nice.
that train wreck. That was an absolute
Yes.
disaster, I swear.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Yeah,
now I
absolute
remember.
disaster.
Yeah.
Wasn't that bad?
But yeah, it's good to be back on.
Now we have our fair share of disastrous CRT debates.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, you guys have some heated conversations. That's most certainly true.
That's
But that debate was like on a different level because, and it's partially my fault because
Mhm.
I am the one who planned and organized it, and I didn't give it any structure. Yes, I didn't give it any structure.
Uh-huh.
It basically was just a Twitter argument. And I was like, you know what? Twitter arguments are not productive, really. So why don't we move to like a video context? And all of a sudden, I didn't give any structure, no rules. It was basically like a free for all.
Mhm.
And we saw where that ended. But it
That's
was fun.
true.
It was fun,
It was
was
fun.
fun.
For those that don't remember, this was the debate between Sam, the guy who follows James Lindsay and tweets bad things at him, and Aaron
Yeah.
versus Karlin Borshenko, Gothics, and Michael, we just talked to on the show, and you. And it's funny because we watched that, because we ended up talking to Sam and Aaron after that conversation, and we had a somewhat
I saw
more
that.
productive conversation. Well,
Yeah.
let me take it back. I don't know if it was
Productive or reductive?
We had a tame conversation. I don't think it was actually productive at all, really.
Well, I saw that conversation.
Uh-huh.
That was last summer. And I think you
Yes.
guys did a very good job making them define their terms.
Mhm.
You guys would not let up on them. You had your foot on their neck. You're like, dude, what is CRT? Define it for me. Define it for me. And that was brilliant though, because we got 2 hours into the debate before we even got to that point. You guys at the start
Right.
did that, and you sussed it out, and it made it really. I mean, so that's really what you had to do. And really, the CRT craze is not really a big thing anymore. Now it's the gender stuff,
Yeah.
the gender ideology stuff. That's the big thing now. That's
Well,
the big
it's-
thing now.
It's still happening. It's just not being talked about.
Absolutely, it's
Right.
still happening. And in fact, I mean, a lot of Republican candidates around America are currently using CRT still as a talking point to, rightfully so, I think, by the way,
Yes.
to bolster their campaigns. So yeah, it's definitely still happening. But people are, I don't know, the transition is just so weird because we went from CRT 1619 project to, the G word. I'm not sure if we're allowed to say the G word. To
Say it.
yeah,
Which G word?
grooming.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Grooming.
grooming word.
Yeah, that word. They're taking down videos and they're taking down tweets
What?
for saying that word.
Really? I didn't know
Yes,
that.
yes.
Wow.
Moms for Liberty got their account nuked on Twitter for saying grooming. Gays Against Groomers, which is like a group of gay folks who are trying to fight back against what they perceive as a movement to groom children into and indoctrinate them in a certain ideology. They've also gotten their various accounts nuked by Twitter or locked, for saying the word grooming. So the cultural conversation over the past year, the shift is just very fascinating to me. And I don't know where it goes from here, to be honest with you.
I think it's just people get bored.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that simple. I
Yeah.
think people just want a new issue to argue about.
I think so too. Yeah.
It's kind of sad. But,
Bored? What are you talking about?
like, people get bored. Like, you can only argue about CRT so much, and then you got to move on to something else to argue about. And they're like, well, let's argue about something different. Oh, what about, gay pride parades and drag queen story time?
Yeah, it's also a matter of convenience too, right?
Mhm.
Because CRT, that debate reflected a particular moment in American culture, a particular moment like right after George Floyd had died, a moment
Yes.
when BLM was in ascendancy. And then once that moment fades away, because really history is just a successive line of moments. Now, whether those moments build up to anything or not, that depends on who you believe. For Marx, the ultimate moment is the ascendancy of the proletariat, the end of class conflict. For other people, the ultimate moment has nothing to do with politics or history, but it has to do with your own self-perfection. For Aristotle, the ultimate moment is eudaimonia, if you ever reach it. So it depends on what view of man or history you take, but nonetheless, moments in politics, moments in history ultimately have a lot of effects, and the cultural conversation is downstream of that. I think that's what we're seeing as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I agree completely, because I think the way these, I think too often people have this view that there's some like intentional, malevolent, George Soros like force that's shaping the discourse. When I think it's really just there's all these forces that all have all these pet issues, and they're constantly trying to shove them into the mainstream. And then some random event happens, like George Floyd, that just like gets the national attention focused on that issue, and that allows that pet issue to kind of worm its way into the national consciousness for a period of time, and then it kind of fades away over time, and becomes something else.
Hey, Christian,
Absolutely.
we talked a little bit about when you were on before when we did your video, but you and I remember us fighting on Twitter, but I can't remember what we were fighting about. Do you recall?
We fought over. Yes, I do. We fought over natural law.
Okay.
You were saying
nice.
it doesn't.
I felt it was something substantive, but it was like,
yeah. No,
You're saying natural law is not substantive, Adam?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, no, didn't I say substantive? I felt it was substantive, but I just couldn't remember what it was.
I thought you were being sarcastic.
So natural law is substantive. What was the crux of our disagreement? Because I remember thinking, God, you're so wrong, and you're someone. Christian, I think, is super smart, man. He's
Yes.
I think
You're
he's
very
like
nice.
You're like 21, 22 years old.
22.
When I was 20,
Oh my God.
Yeah, when I was 22, I fucking
You're so old. Well,
I was interested in surfing and getting high when I was 22. I wasn't like starting
Getting
my
laid,
philosophy political YouTube channel.
Yep. I want to say that you were saying that we did very well in the conversation with Sam and Aaron, which I appreciate. And I will say that all of the goodness of me, like literally me saying that, I'm going to hold my foot on their neck to make them define the terms. That literally only happened because I watched your debate conversation with them and said, I learned from your conversation. So it was like a team effort on our part.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm humbled. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you.
But anyway.
I'm just a vessel, man.
So what was the
ideas.
argument? Because I do remember thinking, and I still think, oh, this guy's so wrong.
Yeah.
What was
I think, from what I remember, I think the crux of the argument was you didn't think natural law was empirically provable or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was some abstract idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I think that it's actually quite real. And what really caused the rift, I began quoting
I remember
from
now.
17th century books.
Right.
And you were like, Christian, these books don't mean anything, dude. Stop it. And so
First of all, I usually don't use the word dude. So that sounds very sus. But the part about quoting old books sounds, that could have been me. The thing that my argument
Adam was like, Christian, can you cite someone who's not dead, please, for your arguments?
Well, maybe Sitch, I think you might agree with me, but I just think rights are something that we fight for. I don't believe that there are natural rights that the universe bestows upon us. I think it's a kind of way of looking at the world that I think is helpful in fighting for and procuring those rights. It's good for us to say our rights are God given, and therefore you're really going to piss God off if you take our rights away. But ultimately, some dictator or autocrat always comes along and ends up taking people's rights away anyway, which makes me think, yeah, that's right. You got to fight for rights. You have to sustain those rights over time.
I guess, Adam, but before you answer, Christian, I would say you have to define. Maybe this is what we got to define our terms here. You have to define what you mean, because isn't it possible that you could say, well, I guess maybe this is the contention. Maybe Adam is saying it's not like, could rights be granted to you by nature, but be able to be taken away by a person? And it seems like, Adam, you're saying the act of the fact that rights can be taken away means that they're not granted to you by nature.
Yeah,
seems to be
that is
argument.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay.
We as a society carve out the rights that we desire, which I think is a good thing. Obviously, we have the Bill of Rights, which I'm in favor of. Like, freedom of speech is a right that we carve out for ourselves. And if we don't, and this is one of the things that bothers me about the natural rights claim, which, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe it is good to make that claim, because you are basically saying, the creator of the universe is the one that wants to make sure I get free speech. And if you piss him off, that's bad. I think we need to be vigilant to protect our rights. And I feel the natural rights philosophy could lull us into a false sense of complacency, which that's what I worry about.
Okay, interesting. So let me try to still man your claim, okay? Because I want to make sure we're getting it entirely right here. You believe that this idea that rights come from a place outside of human control could lull people into complacency, and therefore it's not a very helpful idea. And you also believe that society, which is in human control, is the vehicle that delivers rights to people, not this force outside of our control. Would that be your argument?
Yeah, only a minor tweak in that.
Okay.
Conceptualizing it coming from outside is helpful. It's not. It's like a double-edged sword. It can create complacency, but it can also be a point of argument if the person that you're arguing with believes in natural rights and believes in God. If the person you're arguing with is an atheist, you really don't have an argument.
Okay, so this is a sort of utilitarian perspective on how to use natural rights in a discussion. So, okay, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Let me just ask.
What is utilitarian about it? Because it's not appealing to the largest number of people or anything.
No, but utilitarian in the sense that you believe that it's useful for a particular end.
Like, I would say practical,
like you believe,
or pragmatic.
Practical. Same kind of thing,
right.
But you're right.
Is utilitarian pragmatic? I don't know that utilitarianism and pragmatism.
Utilitarianism is a few things. So utilitarianism is first an ethical system that, you're correct, is concerned about the greatest good for the greatest number of people,
right?
In doing actions that conform to that idea. But utilitarian can also be used in the non-ethical sense, in which it simply means that something is useful, meaning it has utility.
Gotcha.
It's more commonly used in the former sense.
Oh, really. I got you.
Yeah. But
it's like materialism
words are confusing.
It's like materialism has a philosophical meaning that is directly opposite of the daily use of materialism, as in, like, I'm a material girl living in a material world type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, but get this. What is your? Where do you come from with the natural rights? How do you get to that place? How do you get me to that place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a slight misunderstanding, and it's an understandable one, because natural rights, and this is something that the natural rights crowd needs to get better at, is often presented by some people as a religious ideal. And this is even something that happens in the founding documents of the United States, where in the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson says the law of nature and nature's God is what gives us our legitimate claim here to go against the king's actions.
You're right. That's useful.
A lot. Well, it can be useful, absolutely. But I do think that the natural rights idea doesn't necessarily require God to be justified. Now, ultimately, when you get to the very metaphysical level of things, as a Christian, I do think that God is necessary, just as I think that God is necessary, I don't know, for the ordering of the universe. But that's a more personal belief that doesn't have to have any bearing on how I get to my more grounded philosophical conclusions. All to understand natural rights, you have to understand natural law. And all natural law says is that there are certain things about the reality that are unchangeable and that bind all life in reality. So, for example, some of the more common instances of this could be like the law of gravity, things like that. These are constants that are unalterable by man. But the natural law theorist goes one step further and says just as there are constants in the universe that we can't change, there are things about ourselves that we can't change. And if we were to go against those things, life would be impossible. And this is where natural law theorists get the idea, or at least some natural law theorists in the Enlightenment, because natural law goes beyond.
Can I ask you just one question?
Please,
like
please.
The life would be impossible as in social life or as in just human life? Okay.
So, for example, in natural law theory, in Enlightenment natural law theory, and I want to make the distinction because there's a lot of different versions of natural law. You may hear Thomas Aquinas talked about when natural law is talked about. That's a version of natural law. But the natural law that America is built on comes from the 17th century. It comes from John Locke, and it comes from people who came before him, Grotius, Pufendorf, thinkers that no one really studies anymore.
Pufendorf, huh? Okay.
Yeah, Samuel von Pufendorf. He was a German thinker. Yeah. And so Enlightenment natural law theory puts the emphasis on principles that allow life to be possible, but not just possible, but flourish as well. And some of these
that's what makes me think you're talking about social life when you're saying flourishing.
No. Life, flourishing takes place typically in a social context.
Yeah.
But independent of a social context, life can either flourish or it can falter, right? I don't require a social context, to flourish or to falter. I mean, in my opinion, I don't. So, for example,
I disagree though. In a human context, like this is why solitary confinement exists. It's like a punishment.
Correct. And solitary confinement is antisocial.
Right.
And yet, even in that antisocial context, you see man faltering. So my point's kind of proven.
Okay.
I don't need a social context to flourish or to falter. So natural law would say there are certain things about you that remain constant and that you have to act in conformity with unless you want to go against life. So this is where the idea of natural rights come from. You have a right to life, because if you didn't have a right to life, you wouldn't be able to exist. Society would be irrelevant. Government would be irrelevant. We would all be dead if life wasn't something that actually mattered. You have a right to liberty. That means you have a right to order your life in accordance to certain principles, a capacity to act. You have a right to property. That means you have a right of self-ownership within yourself, but also you have a right to obtain the materials required to live life. Natural law is simply about the basic necessities, the basic principles of human existence, and then translating those into a political or social context. So when they say that we get our rights from God, you could literally believe, as a lot of natural law thinkers did, that God literally granted them to you. Or you can believe that the natural facts of human existence give you this right. And God can be an approximation of that. So you can either say God or you can say nature. I think for simplicity's purposes, I say nature because I don't think I'm making a religious argument. I'm making an empirical argument. I'm looking at the basic principles that order human life. And I'm saying, if you go against these principles, just like if you go against law of gravity, disaster will ensue. That's what natural law is. Now, the idea of rights are, and this is a term that's not really well defined by anybody.
How are you defining disaster ensuing?
Well, as in death, as in carnage. a lot of things, right? If you don't adhere to certain principles, your life could be shortened. Your life could be very miserable,
Right.
very, So for example, you have a right to liberty. If you are kept in bondage, you can't really live well. If the ability to act and to choose is taken away from you, how can you order your life in accordance to anything except to what the person who's enslaving you wants you to do? You can't. Which is why it's impossible to have virtue without liberty, which is something that post-liberals don't understand, by the way.
Right.
It's impossible to have virtue without liberty. You must have the
Based.
ability to order your own actions
Yes.
if you're going to have any kind of meaningful life whatsoever.
Well,
Right?
I
Virtue
I
is
agree
the
with this. Yeah, but it's just the
absolutely,
origin
and
point.
this is natural law. This is natural law, and so rights. You have to ask yourself the question: what are rights? So there's a word that's very important. It's ius, and that word was first used by the thinker Francisco Suarez, who was essentially a philosopher who came right before the Enlightenment. He came right before before John Locke, before America was founded. And he was the first natural law philosopher to really do work on the issue of rights as related to persons. And Uis basically um, is the source of the term rights as it relates to Enlightenment natural law theory. And all that term means things that belong to you, qualities that you possess. So then Grotius, who was a sort of student of Suarez, a little bit separated, took that term and developed what we would understand today as natural rights theory. You have a right to keep what you already have, which means your life, which means your liberty. You have a right to and a duty to respect other people's property, their life, their liberty. Now, Grotius didn't go as far as Locke did. Grotius had this idea that if you were under a government, it's actually immoral to overthrow the government, even if the government did something bad to you, because the sovereign, the ruler of the government, is meant to take care of you. And if you go against him, if you overthrow him, you're actually making it hard for him to do his job. Therefore, you're committing a moral wrong. Now, obviously, this argument, I don't buy it. I think that it's bad. As a Grotius fanboy, I think that it's bad. But this was his political theory. Locke came along and said, no. There are certain things that already belong to you by virtue of who you are as a human being, that if anyone goes against it, you have the right to defend yourself and overthrow that person, whether it be a government or an individual. And so rights were understood in the Enlightenment as things that belong to us. Things that belong to us and also enable us to live morally responsible lives. So, for example, having a right to liberty enables us to live.
Can I ask you a question about the...
Sure, please.
So,
please.
Can you have rights that you are not in possession of? So let's say the right to property. If you're a slave, do you have the natural right to property and it's just being denied you?
You still own yourself. And ultimately, the primary right of property comes from yourself.
Okay.
No.
But so in a slave
Yeah,
situation,
yeah,
the slave has the right but is denied it by the slave master.
The slave master thinks he's denying it. So here's my thing. The concept of inalienable rights, and this is actually a conversation amongst rights theorists.
Well, how about like freedom of speech? Like,
yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So inalienable rights is the idea that no one, not even you, can get rid of your rights, no matter how much they try. So you can enslave someone, and you are certainly in trying to inhibit their rights. You're certainly violating their rights, but by virtue of them being a human being, they still have these things. Mm-hmm. You have to kill them for those things to no longer matter. And even then, if they were alive, they would still matter. So yeah, someone who is enslaved is having their rights violated, but in their nature, they're still a free person, which is why slaves can become freedmen. If slaves were not naturally free, they could never break the yoke of their bondage, which is so interesting. The reason they break the yoke of their bondage is because all men in their hearts desire freedom. And all authoritarian regimes eventually realize this, whether it's through, militias popping up or whatever. They eventually realize this fact. So rights are sourced from the very essence of who you are. That's the idea of natural rights. And they prove this by observation, by putting man in certain conditions where those principles are denied and seeing how well he does, i.e., doesn't do very well. Now, as a free speech, we can do an interesting little thing here. So, free speech is one of the many natural rights that man is in possession of. And we can source it by saying the following. If you have free speech is a sub-right of liberty, of the right to liberty. So if you have the right to order your actions in accordance to a way that pleases you, so long as it's not violating anyone else's rights, then one of the many actions that someone could do in a theoretical universe is the right to talk. So free speech comes from your natural right of liberty. And more fundamentally, without the ability to express himself, man has a hard time being distinguished from the animals. Okay, so let me not say that because animals express all the time. Okay. Let me reverse. Without his ability to intelligibly express himself, man has a very hard time being distinguished from the animals. Language is the vehicle for someone to interface with reality, to understand reality, and to understand all of its different parts. And this is one of the reasons that distinguishes man from beasts. Beasts don't have the ability to understand reality beyond instinct.
But
Cats, dogs, it's all instinctual.
The problem
Whereas
I see here is problem I see here is this seems like a good way to make excuses for the slave owner to come along and say, listen, you're a slave, but you inherently have your natural rights. You have your right to property. You have your body is your property. Okay. You can't own a car or anything, but you're still free.
No, Adam, if someone walks up to me and steals my phone and says, well, you still have a computer, so you still have a communication device. Is that any less of a rights violation because I have other kinds of property? Of course not. You've still taken something that belongs to me. Injustice, based on the idea of natural rights, involves you respecting what I already have in my possession. The moment you disrespect my liberty by trying to put me in chains, you are in a moral violation against me, and you have to recompense for that. Well, if you don't recompense,
wouldn't the argument be, though, if it's a moral violation, wouldn't you say, listen, you've taken away this person's rights? I asked you directly, I said, does the slave have the natural rights? And you're saying, yes, they do still have the natural rights.
You can't.
So it can't be both. It can't be they have the natural rights and they don't have the natural rights.
Are they infringing upon the rights?
They're infringing, right. I would never use the term take away rights because I don't think that's a conceptual possibility.
Okay.
They're impairing, encroaching, diminishing, eroding, there's a lot of words you can use.
Well, then, Christian, why? But when I asked you specifically, you started making the arguments, though, that even though they are enslaved, they still have these rights. Why aren't you making?
Well, okay, because we're talking about two different things. Wait, hold on. First of all, I don't think this argument, Adam, is persuasive. In that,
my argument or his argument? I'm not
your
really
argument, Adam. Well, your argument.
I'm
that
not
the
really
concept
making an
of
argument.
People having inalienable rights would allow people to basically infringe upon those rights. I just don't see that. I mean, I don't think that's ever happened in a society that I'm aware of.
So you think you think the natural rights are more helpful than harmful than harmful?
I think natural rights are more, even if you don't believe in them. I do think that it's one of those useful fictions that definitely helps, governments and societies cement rights, in them. And I think.
I mean, I agree with that.
I think the thing that you're getting at, maybe this is where the disconnect is coming from, is like I would agree with what you said earlier, Christian, that if you have a society that infringes upon natural rights, it will lead to bad outcomes. And I agree with that completely. I guess the question is, and I think the thing that Adam is asking, and what some people are confused about in the natural rights conversation, is like, what exactly is being laid out? Is it saying that, like, when you say nature grants you, like a human, a right to do something? Like, what exactly does that mean? Do we just mean in a sort of like is the argument just like a categorical argument, sort of, if someone argues about whether Pluto is a planet or not, Like
Mhm.
nature doesn't decide
wow.
whether Pluto's a
Wow,
planet,
yeah.
but we as humans create a category of what it means to be a planet, and then we look at
Right,
objective categories that exist to determine that.
right,
Is that what a natural
right.
right is essentially?
Great
Um,
question.
you could. That is a very good question. I would never. Categories are simply helpful tools that
Mhm.
help us group certain things that are similar.
Right.
Um, and that's why I think when you get into conversations about rights, it's probably good to avoid using the word category. In a strictest sense, could you say they're a category? Yes, but not in the sense that they're like artificial, right?
Hmm.
In the sense that there's something that actually exists and we're trying to find a way to
Well,
describe them.
planets actually
So no,
exist. It doesn't. We're not.
well, planets do exist, but the classification of a planet is typically up to the people who study that kind of stuff.
Right. That's the social
Which
construct
is why,
element. Yes.
yeah, the classic rights are not up to people who have any kind of knowledge. They're axiomatic. They already exist before any of
See,
us
that's
are
I think where
here.
the
Now,
disagreement is, because I
and I
think
understand.
rights are what we carve out. We carve them out to build a thriving society, which I will like. We could go through the list of rights that you are saying are natural rights, and I'm saying we have carved out for ourselves. And I'm sure we would agree that all of those rights will create a thriving society. We're just disagreeing
Well,
on the origin point of them.
some rights may not create a thriving society, and that's okay.
Well, no,
I
I'm
have a
saying the ones
right,
that you and I would
yeah.
pick would obviously create a
Well,
thriving
let's try
society.
to focus in
Yeah.
on the
Well,
specific here. Like, what is
yeah.
how is the right axiomatic, I guess, is the question.
Right. Well, because rights describe something that belongs to people,
Hmm.
right? So when I say that I have a right to life, well, I am living, and to do anything in any context as a human being, I have to have my life. And if I didn't have a right to life, then doing anything, in any capacity, whether it be in politics, society, or even talking to you guys, would be fundamentally impossible. So the right to life is a necessary requirement for any kind of engagement. That's what I say when I say it's axiomatic. My
What?
But
right to
we
How are you
deny
life,
the
I
right to
defining a
am.
life to
right?
all kinds of people, like
Wait.
serial
What?
killers or
Well,
rapists.
Wait. Hold on. How are you
yes.
defining a right?
So as I mentioned, US
Hmm.
early, IUS, qualities that belong to people. Rights are things that inherently belong to you, that are a part of who you are as a human being. They're a principle of your existence. Now, in the
Okay.
sense that Adam's talking about, that we carve out rights, those would be privileges, things granted to you by certain authorities or certain institutions. So, for example, the quote unquote right to healthcare, the quote unquote right to education, the sort of progressive positive rights idea. I have a problem calling those rights because none of us inherently have a right to any of those things. None of us have a right to demand that someone else educates us. But we do have a right to go out and seek knowledge.
So,
Right. We
okay.
do have a right to go out and seek knowledge. You
So
know,
when you
we,
say
sorry.
right,
Yeah.
when you say right, would it would it be fair to say that when you say the word right, that's shorthand for saying a principle that necessitates human existence?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
if that's your definition of maybe this is where like the hang up is coming from, because I don't think that's how most people think of when they think of rights.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So maybe
Unfortunately.
that's where the
Most people
confusion
have
comes.
the
But
wrong
maybe I would
idea.
agree because I would agree with you. Obviously, like living necessitates human existence because if you're not alive, you don't exist. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, so I agree with living. What's is there another right that's more
Liberty.
like
Liberty, your ability
okay,
to act. So being
ability
alive
to
itself is not really anything special. But your ability to order your life in a way that is respectful of other people's rights, and I would also say, as a sort of corollary to that, in a way that pursues good virtue and good moral character, that is essential. If you are living but you can't act, you're in slavery and you can't really flourish. Human flourishing is not achieved under that condition. So liberty is simply your capacity to act. Now, obviously, and I'll kind of still man my opponents here, this belief requires free will. If you
right?
don't believe in free will,
Oh shit.
then this idea of liberty makes no sense.
We're in big trouble,
Um,
Sitch.
and what? So, I mean, this belief requires free will. You could say something else. So there's in
What
philosophy.
about if we
But-
buy
and-
some
and
free
philo-
will, can we use that?
If you buy some free will.
Well,
I'm not sure that's how it works,
well, first of all, we sell free will on the show, but secondly,
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
both
hold on.
Adam and I's position is that we think free will exists, but you're not born with
Okay.
it, that you have to basically work for it. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure how that would fit.
How does that work? How does that work?
Because I think generally people just like they just react to things essentially. Like they have a base emotional or intuitive reaction to something based on their biology or based on past experiences, and then that's kind of the guiding behavior. And then they use their rational mind to justify their action after the fact. And so if you're doing that, I would say that's not really free will.
Do you think animals
Okay.
have free will,
Well,
Christian?
No.
Okay, so
No.
we
but-
under the
but-
same principle think most people operate like animals.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Here's my question to both of you.
Mhm.
How would someone, you're basically saying some people make decisions based off emotion, basically what you're saying.
I'm saying
How would
everyone
someone
makes
making a
decision.
Even us.
Well, okay, that's a very haughty presumption, but I agree. Okay, I would agree that in some cases people act off of emotion.
Yes.
But let's just assume in your case that that's like the normative state of things.
Mhm.
How would this negate free will? Would it be possible under the idea that everyone has the rational facility to choose what they want to do, which would be free will as it's defined?
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be congruent to do things based off of emotion, even if we do have a higher capability? Because it's possible not
Right.
to use a tool well. I can be a construction worker and misuse a hammer, but I still got the hammer. Similarly, I can have free will and still misuse it.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I think people have two different definitions of free will, and this is where a lot of the arguments get stuck on because they don't realize they're using the terms differently. And some
Mhm.
people, and I think what the argument you laid out just now is that some people define free will is like you approach a split in the road, and you can go left or right, and simply having the choice presented to you is enough to necessitate free will. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. I
well-
think what me and Adam kind of are getting at is even if you approach the fork in the road and you can go left or right, if something makes the person go left every time, something inside their mind that they're not aware of, I would say just because they're presented with a choice doesn't mean they actually have free will because they're always going to go left.
Right.
Well,
A
and
illusory choice.
even
Right.
if they're just going to deploy some randomizer in their brain, that's not necessarily free will either.
Yeah, of course, right.
Well, this
if
is
they
a
roll
very
a dice,
determined.
every time. But
This is a very deterministic view, right? Minds over
Mhm.
matter, matter over minds in this case.
right.
And I reject it for a few reasons. You mentioned the analogy of a fork in the road. I would say that free will would allow you to decide if you get on the road in the first place.
Well,
I
I'm just
don't
using
really
it as
think
like to explain the
Sure,
concept.
as an analogy, but like
Right.
I think that I get it, but I think that those analogies can be useful in showing the flip side as well.
Mhm.
That's one thing. The other thing is, do I believe that there are emotional compulsions or biological compulsions that you say to act certain way? Obviously, there are. Now, the
Right.
question is, A, to what extent do those compulsions guide our actions? Or B, to what extent do those compulsions weaken our ability to be rational as human beings, which would be a prerequisite for free will in my mind?
Mhm.
And if you can't establish a consistency of those compulsions overriding the rational faculty, then I don't really see how this would be an argument that free will may not be accessible to most people.
You're
I don't really see it.
agreeing with us sort of because you're
No.
saying that rationality
No.
is a prerequisite for free will.
Well, I believe all human I believe that reason is, and all human beings are innately born with reason, but not all
Reason
human
and
beings use
rationality
reason.
I'm using interchangeably. I mean,
Yeah, not all human beings use rationality.
I
but all human
understand
beings
that,
have
yeah.
it. All of us have it though, and so the fact that we have it means we have free will. We may not use it. But we
Right.
have
That's
it.
why. Yeah. That's why I said I think people have the potential for free will. I just don't think most people end up utilizing it for most of their lives, if not all of their lives.
Okay, well, hold on. No, because
I know when I was that 20-year-old
No,
smoking weed and surfing, I was
you
not
were using your free will.
I was
You were
not
using your free
deploying my
will.
free will. Yeah,
You
my
will?
free
Oh,
will would have told me to
what
get
made
my
you
ass
smoke?
to class.
Well, what made you smoke?
it was fun. I want to hang out with my friends.
It felt good.
That
It
was
felt
a
good at the time.
rational decision at that, a conscious decision, not a rational. Well, it was a conscious decision at that time. So, like for example, there are numerous other things that any of us could be doing right now. We could be eating, we could be out in the sun, getting sunbathed. What biological compulsion has brought us here?
Well, first of all, we're drifting into a topic of free will when we were talking about natural rights. And I'm not sure we ever resolved the natural rights thing. But
we didn't. We didn't. We can go back to it. But I want to continue this for a second. Do you, if someone is like addicted to a drug, okay, say someone's addicted to cigarettes, is that not free will every time they pick up a cigarette and smoke it? Or is it free will when they pick up a cigarette and smoke it?
Every time you pick up a cigarette and smoke it, that is free will.
Okay. I would disagree. I'd say that the fact that there's a chemical that's basically forcing the person to behave in a certain way means that they're not using free will. Now they have the capacity to, but it's not happening.
No, I think the only way for you to pick up that cigarette realistically is to use your free will.
Right.
I don't think that free will is like on the sliding scale. It's basically like a tool. You may not use it in a wise way. You may not use it in a very smart way. But it's like an ingrained, maybe a tool is a little bit too external because tools are like kind of independent. It's like a tool that we all innately possess, but we may not use in a wise way, but we're always using it. It's always in the background. Kind of like some computer program. It's always in the background. You may not know your antivirus is running, but it's still running. That's how I see free will. Right. And I think the natural right claim that we have a right to liberty presumes free will. Now, there is another position in the natural rights.
Well, hold on. Before you move on, let me just say, I think we just have very different views of how we're defining what free will is.
We do.
And I think that's just it. Because like under your definition, I mean, I don't think you're wrong in how you're defining it. I would agree with you. I just don't define free will that way.
Well, I would encourage you to consider the principle I laid out. I think the principle you laid out is very interesting. I think that in the relationship between emotion, physiology, biology, and how we act is very complex and is necessary to consider. Having said that, we still act. And the fact that we act means we act with free will. We may not always act.
You're not going to change. You're not going to change my mind on this one. But
I'm not trying to change. Not trying to change. I'm just trying to present a different view. Present a different view.
No, I understand. We've had.
That's the best thing about free will. We can have different opinions. Free will.
There you go.
Did we ever reach a resolution on the natural rights thing? And people are saying I dodged some liberty. Question.
I'm not sure I understand this. Like, what do you mean by liberty to act? What does that mean?
That means that you can order your actions in a way that is that you control them. So like, for example, liberty to act, I can go up right now and go get water. I can go up right now and I can drink some hot tea like I'm drinking. Your capacity to act is what liberty means, basically. And the natural law theorists say that you have a right to liberty. You have a right to act in a manner that is not going to violate someone else's liberty, someone else's right. This is like the basic classical liberal idea of individual liberty comes from. The natural. There's two places. It can come from utilitarianism or it can come from natural rights.
Here's the problem is that when you say right, you mean a principle that necessitates human existence. I don't think the right to act does necessitate human existence. I mean, someone could be born into a situation where they don't have any right to act and they would still exist. They would still be human. They would just be living in some horrid conditions.
Even babies have the right to act. It's just it's not developed, right? A lot of it is just a lot of passion and energy, crying, wailing. It's not really developed. But even babies, I mean, any movement that you see in a human being, it's them acting. And so from that point of view, from the view that this locomotive action that we're doing is an integral feature of our human nature, that's where the natural right for liberty comes from.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. So like, okay, so you're saying like even if someone was born so that they're like chained to a post their whole life, all their extremities are chained down. They can still move, a little bit. And you're saying that's the
rights. Now, in that instance, the right is being violated, but they still have that right, but it's being violated.
Right, but But you're making the argument that these rights can never be taken. They can be infringed, they can be restricted, but they can never be fully
Exactly.
taken away.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so
But it can be violated. Absolutely. Yeah.
right. So you're saying, okay, just because someone can move their body, that means they
It's
have this
obvious
right.
that
I don't
that's a
see how that
very
extrapolates. I
that's a
understand what you're
very
saying, but I don't see how
right.
that
That's a very
extrapolates.
simplistic.
I
Right.
know, but
That's a very sim. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
what I'm saying is I don't see how that extrapolates to like a broader moral claim, I guess.
Well, okay. I get what you're saying. So if you're not able to act, how can you live a life that is congruent with good character? How can you be a good person if you
Well, you
can't do
can't
anything?
definitionally. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
And so the fact that human beings have this capacity to act, and
Hmm.
especially the fact that we have this capacity to act in a manner that conforms with reason, is where
Hmm.
natural law theorists say that's where your right for liberty comes from. Because all creatures can act, like
Right.
dogs, cats, they can all move, but they can't do so within the capacity of reason. And so
Okay.
that's where this idea of liberty, your capacity to act in accordance with your innate human reason. That's what liberty would be defined
Sure.
as by natural law theorists.
I agree with everything you said, but it sounds like then we're straying out of the realm of objective to subjective because you're
No,
making a judgment value here.
no, well, natural law theory is all about making objective value statements. So natural law is theory is basically saying you have all of these capacities and these rights as a human being, all these qualities that lets you live a moral and fulfilled life if
Hmm.
you so choose to. And if people go against that, they're quite literally stopping you from being able to do that.
Yeah,
They're
but
doing something that is bad.
saying
And
well, first of
so
all, make saying something
it's
is
it
well, saying something is a moral way to live is already that's already not objective. That's already a subjective statement.
no, well, if you believe morality is subjective, but natural rights, if your morality is sourced in natural rights, then it is objective. So, and this is a really a conflict because a lot of people when they think of morals,
Hmm.
they think of women should wear a certain kind of pants, or you shouldn't have sex before you get married.
Right.
That's those are tastes. Those are not ethics. Real morals come from ethics.
Hmm.
And ethics come from things that we can observe in reality, these principles, these natural principles that allow life to happen and allow life to happen in a good manner. And it is conceivable for someone to have sex outside of marriage and still live a healthy life.
Hmm.
Now, is it conceivable for someone to be promiscuous and sleep with 100 people every month, just to be absurd, to give an absurd definition, with no protection or anything, and still live a happy and fulfilled life? Natural law would say no, because like you're basically abusing your body, no protection, nothing, and you're subjecting yourself to so many different cost, emotional cost, potential physical cost of getting infected. So natural law doesn't just say do whatever you want to do, but it does say live in accordance with certain principles that order life. So promiscuity would be something that natural law theorists say, you really shouldn't do that because of the immense costs that come with it, and the sort of psychological costs that come with it as well. Um, you know, so yeah.
Well, well, I think that example kind of muddies the water too much because I think it's a bad example. I mean, you could
Okay.
have
Well,
us, you know,
well,
because we could
there's
construct the hypothetical, there's going to be a future where people are going to have their harem of 1,000 sex bots or whatever that,
well, the natural law theorists would oppose that too, because in that future, what
Mhm.
it means to be a human would be drastically redefined, and this is what the transhumanists are trying to do right now.
Yeah, but
They're trying to
that's
redefine what it means to
right.
be a human,
Yeah,
they're
but
trying to take humanity.
that's
Yeah, they're
inevitable.
trying. No, well, unfortunately, it's the intellectual mood of the ages, but I don't think it's inevitable. I think that people need to fight back against it
It's
because
inevitable because some country's going to do it too, and we're going to have to do it to keep up. Otherwise,
I
we'll
don't.
get subjugated, essentially.
Well, I don't. Good moral thinking is not made on the basis of keeping up or not keeping up. Good moral thinking is made on the basis of adhering to
No,
principle.
well,
And
well, first of all, wait.
no,
Like
no,
laying out that, like,
I,
wait a minute, laying
I
out that something means that you're human versus, I don't know, putting a chip in your head that makes you smarter makes you not human or something like
well,
that. that's first of all, that's subjective you're right. It's a subjective moral statement. I don't think that's an ethics statement that is being observed. And it will
Well,
very much change the way humans enact. But if that's just the way it's
it
going to happen. There's no way to get around that.
I don't believe that very few things are inevitable in history except death,
Hmm.
obviously. I don't think that anything's
Well,
really
maybe not.
inevitable. And I think that it is likely
Hmm.
that a lot of the world is going to go towards this sort of technological transhumanist age, but it's not inevitable. It can be fought against, and with, I think, a return to certain principles like those found in natural law theory, it can be effectively argued against as well. Now, as for the chip in the brain thing, the natural law theorists would say that we understand and access our rights through our capacity to reason, and the chip in the brain essentially outsources man's reason to this thing that is foreign to him, and therefore it makes him less capable of being able to understand the true limits of who he
We
is.
already do that right
Because
now.
what do you mean?
But we outsource our knowledge to computers right
What,
now.
Well, it's not the same thing. A chip is more intimate,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Because
obviously a
computers,
chip in your brain is a more
right?
intimate direct, but I mean, we
Yes.
do outsource our knowledge to other people and to machines like all the time.
Well, okay, okay. Well, outsourcing our reason to a chip that
Hmm.
literally changes how your brain chemistry works is a fundamentally categorically different matter than going to someone and saying, "Hey, what's your opinion on X, Y, and Z?" Human beings learn from other people by being social. And this is why the natural law theorists believe that we are social animals. The sociability of man is a building block of civil society. But we don't grow or flourish by having these machines essentially allow us to go on autopilot and do the work for us.
Right.
That's what they would say. And that's what I would say as well.
Well, does that apply to drugs as well? Because they change your brain
Yes. Oh,
chemistry?
yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. So, forgot what his name was, but this Scottish natural law philosopher in the 17th century. I forgot what his name was. It'll come to me later. But he wrote a book about natural law philosophy in that era. And he has a list of duties that we all have according to natural law. And one of those duties is a duty to cultivate a sound mind. So the argument goes like this: if we want to make sure that we can live life in a manner that it's not going to lead to destruction, the mind is very important. But if you're constantly worrying or you're constantly seized by things that will not allow you to be a productive human being, you are degrading your mind.
Hmm.
Drugs are a very easy way to do this. Now, not always, obviously. Some drugs help people. Some drugs help people concentrate. Some drugs help people think they have more creativity. I'm not saying all drugs are bad, but excessive drug use of certain substances can absolutely degrade your mind. And if you don't have a sound mind, it's hard to really fulfill that right to life.
Right. Well, I'm not saying, yeah, obviously different drugs have different effects on people and they would have a different
Mm-hmm.
effect on how they live and they could be good
Mm-hmm.
or bad. I guess what I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking is, like, is it just the property of changing your brain chemistry that violates the natural law or not? So then, because then even if you had a drug that was beneficial, I mean, it's still changing your brain chemistry.
Yeah, but not in a way that a chip would.
Why
Now
not?
again, well, because again, a chip is a little bit more intimate. A drug is a foreign substance that you inject inside of you for a
Hmm.
particular period of time, and the chip would be like a feature of you, a sort of semi-permanent feature of you. Because they say they can be removed, but I mean, there may come a point in time where, with nanotechnology, where you don't have it removed, where it becomes an essential part of you. Drugs are not an essential part of you. And natural law is concerned about preserving essential parts of you for what they are right now.
I'm not sure I really see a distinction because, like, if you
Well,
have a chip
because
that
if
could
you,
be turned on and
yeah,
off in your brain that does the same thing as you taking medicine regularly, I mean, it's essentially doing the exact same process.
well, you're integrating a foreign object into your body, whereas with marijuana or whatever drug you want to
Hmm.
talk about, it's a foreign substance that comes in a certain interval and then it
I
goes
understand.
away.
Right.
I mean, unless you abuse it a lot and stuff like that. And
Right.
and if you were to abuse it a lot, the natural authors would say, okay, you're doing something bad. It's not good,
Well,
right? If you're, yeah.
is it only the introduction of, I mean, what about gene editing?
It's not,
Would
well,
that,
gene editing would be against natural law too. Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Gene editing, stem cell research, all that stuff. Yeah.
So
What?
if in like
Yes.
20 years from now, they can basically make it so no one dies of old age because they can,
That
reverse the
immoral.
aging process.
That's bad. There's
What?
a certain so death is
How
a natural
I thought you were
necessity.
saying
No, no.
thriving and stuff. Now it's totally
Okay.
like
Does man thrive if he lives forever?
I don't know the
yes,
answer to that
that's the
No,
question.
he does not.
ultimate
No,
thriving.
because life happens in a context of limitations. Reality is limited. Human beings are limited, and within those contexts of limitations, no, really,
No,
and
that's easy
within
for
those
you to say at
contexts of
22.
limitation, no, this is nothing to do with age, Adam, and everything to do with observation.
Sure.
Life
You
happens
get
in
to
a
Adam's age,
context of
all of a sudden you want to
limitation.
look at that
Sure.
anti-aging shot. You're
Okay,
like,
okay, Adam,
Sure.
go try to fly right now without any mechanical apparatus.
Why? I mean, I that would be silly.
It would be. Why? Because we are limited. We are inherently limited. There are
Do
certain
I need to
natural
bring up
principles.
parasailing
but wait a minute.
videos?
I
But
feel like
that's an apparatus.
Where's my
right, but
base
you're using
jumping
something.
videos?
wait. It feels like you're making an anti-liberty argument right now because you're
No,
essentially saying we should
how?
be slaves to whatever hand nature has dealt us.
Yeah, of course.
So no, liberty comes
Mm-hmm.
from nature.
Right.
And to be a slave to an axiom makes no sense to me, because the everything else in life presupposes that principle. So how can you be a slave to something that is already there before you? It makes no sense to me.
Because
I'm not saying you have to be a
essentially,
slave.
I understand. Right. Because essentially, you seem to be saying is that nature has, first of all, nature has granted us the ability to have liberty to move and to act and do all this stuff, but part of the limitation that's built into nature is that everyone dies. That every animal dies except for a mortal jellyfish or whatever animal that is that does that. But if humans use their liberty and their reason and their rationale and these other natural right properties to construct a technology that makes it so that they don't have to die via aging, they could essentially live forever until they're killed. How is that not just fulfilling their liberty? Just because it violates a limitation that was,
liberty.
put upon us without our choice.
No. So liberty is a minimum requirement of existence. And when we talk about rights, we're talking about minimum requirements. And this is all something post-liberals get wrong. Post-liberals think because people focus on the individual, they're forgetting about the importance of society or community or being a good person or whatever. That's not the case. These things enable you to do those things. But the problem is when you completely change the context in which man exists in, new rules become created and the old rules get thrown away. So you may say that I am fulfilling my liberty by trying to prolong my lifespan, but what I'm doing is I'm actually changing the foundation of my existence to fit my own arbitrary whim, and who knows where that could lead. That could ultimately lead to a loss of my liberty. It's manipulation. We're manipulating the foundations, and the point of natural law are to have certain universal constants that we don't try to edit or change, but we live in conformity to. That's why that would be not ideal.
Well, okay. Well, hold on. Let me ask a question. So the first thing that we said was that your first right, or the most basic right, is your right to exist, right? Because without it, humans don't exist, right? And so if someone tries to kill you, or say someone kills you, they're taking away your right to life, right? If a person comes up and stabs you, okay. If a lion comes up and eats you, is the lion taking away your right to live, or does this only apply to other human actors?
Anything that's because you can defend yourself against the lion, right? So of course.
Okay.
Yes.
So where I'm going with this, where I'm sure you see I'm going with this, is that how is the body itself, how is the natural aging process, how is that any different than a lion?
Because the natural aging process is innate, a lion is external. They're categorically different.
Yeah, but the lion is still the lion's not part of you, but it's part of the nature that you live in. It's still a limitation that nature has. If you grow up in a jungle where lions exist, that's a limitation that nature has placed upon you.
It is.
Right.
Well, yes, but natural law, but that's more of a specific limitation in a specific area. Not all areas have lions, obviously. So when we talk about limitations, we're not talking about the various things in the world that can kill us. We're talking about reality itself. What can people not do by virtue of being human? And one of those things is not live forever. as opposed to certain external limitations, right? If I live in an area that doesn't have any cars, then not having a car is a limitation, but that's not a limitation of reality. That's a limitation of circumstance.
No, but okay, like nature. So nature, you being alive necessitates your existence, obviously, right? Someone can still come up and kill you and take away your right to life by killing you, just as the lion takes away your right to life.
Violate it, yeah.
Yes, they violated it. Well, I would.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've taken it away because you don't exist anymore. You cease to be. Like once the right is taken away, you cease to exist.
Yeah, violate. They can definitely violate it.
Right.
Yeah, and
so
I agree. Yeah.
I still don't understand why that would not apply to creating anti-aging technology that is preserving that right to life.
But okay, someone taking away your life is an external agent coming into a situation and artificially doing something that is bad. You just dying is nothing artificial. It's just how things are. And the point of natural law is not to create artificial things to expand your limitations. It is to learn how to live well within the boundaries of your limitations. So the difference is the lion just coming up to you and killing you is not a necessity of life, but death is a necessity of life. Even if you were to expand your lifespan, that death is still something that is very possible.
But you're not suggesting, I'm assuming you're not suggesting that, like, if someone's born with some sickness that's going to kill them, if there's a man-made cure, they should take it, right? Even though that wouldn't violate the natural...
So absolutely no. Well, no, because that's enabling them to, if they are born with a sickness or a degeneracy, being able to cure that is enabling them to still live within the same limitations that natural law necessitates. So no, medicine, science, that's not against natural law, because some people think that natural law is, if it's natural, it's good, and that's not true.
Right. That's what I assume that's not what you're saying.
Right. So that's but there's also the anti-naturalistic fallacy, by the way.
No, but why? But why does that not apply to death? Because
if you cure someone in the context of life, they're still going to die someday. You're just giving them an opportunity.
But
to beat a certain degeneracy. But what you're trying to do when you're trying to obtain immortality, you're trying to artificially extend the limits of human life to a point where you're removing human life from the proper context that natural law is involved in. That's the situation.
Well, I don't know what is proper context. I don't know what that means.
The limitations that we have naturally. We age, we die, we ache. Things like that.
But where's the line for that?
These are not things to avoid.
Where's the line for the limitations of human life?
There is no line. We have them, and life is about learning how to work with limitations.
There is a line.
Not escape them.
There is a line, because obviously, life, people live longer now than they used to, right? So we're extending the line, right? Like 1,000 years ago, you could say, well, life grants you the ability to live till you're 40, right? And now it's to your 70s.
It's circumstance. It's circumstance, because 1,000 years ago, a few hundred years ago, we didn't have bathrooms as we have them right now.
Hygiene, germ theory, medicine.
Hygiene,
right.
Exactly. Right. So we understood. Actually, kind of proving my point, because what we did is we updated our understanding of the natural world and the limitations of nature within that context. We didn't go beyond it. We stay within it, and we learned, how can we keep our bodies well? How can we regulate our bodies in a way that will help us preserve our life? And that's a fundamentally different idea than me saying, okay, let me go beyond those limitations and expand my lifespan to however long I want it to be expanded to.
I mean, you're saying that. I don't understand how it is. To me, it's it's just following that process.
Okay, so when we didn't have knowledge of things that were healthy that we could do to expand our lifespans naturally, we got knowledge of that. And the knowledge of that is still within the context of all of us one day eventually going to die. Now, we have this idea over here that says, you don't have to die one day. You don't have to die anytime soon. So let's take this piece of technology and let's extend your life beyond its current limitations, which is drastically different than staying within those limitations, but learning how to work within them. So it's like, let's use an analogy. It's like being in a car and not knowing how to use all the features, then learning how to use all the features and driving the car better, as opposed to completely building a different car,
adding a rocket engine
and getting into
car.
that one. Exactly. Boom. Exactly.
Why are the limitations important? Why should we allow ourselves to be limited by them?
Why should we allow ourselves to be limited by death and things of that sort?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you act as if we have a choice.
Well, in the hypothetical, you did have a choice.
There is, but that's in a context that is alien to reality, and that's the problem. A lot of this stuff is alien to reality.
Well, I mean, they're working on this right now. I mean,
yeah,
they are. But the problem is when you go against reality, it tends to bite back at you very hard. So they can work on it all they want. I don't think it's going to end up being pretty.
Well, okay, wait. So are you just skeptical? Are you skeptical of this technology will ever be produced? Is that
I'm skeptical for both moral and physiological reasons.
So what is the cost?
Hold on. We're not talking about morals right now. Just the physical reasons. Okay.
Well,
these are different.
The moral reasons have to do with natural law, right?
I understand that.
Yeah.
Well, you're kind of mixing them together. That's why I'm trying to separate them out. It's because like you could say that you think the technology will never exist, or you could say you think technology will exist but be immoral to you.
I think the technology will definitely exist.
But
I'm skeptical if it can work in a way that is harmonious with nature, with the limitation of things. It, by definition, if it's trying to extend my age beyond its natural way, then it can't work in harmony with my nature. And that's the problem. And that's where the natural law consequences come in.
But I understand what you're saying because you're not wrong, I guess. But in terms of what it means to be harmonious with nature, the question is, I mean, I would argue our entire modern life is not harmonious with nature. Everything we're doing is, a violation of natural law. And yet we don't see it that way because we've just been living it for so long.
Yeah, this conversation that we're having right now over the internet, video conferencing is
the idea. The idea that I could talk to a person from vast distances that I'm not in the same room is a complete violation of the limitations of nature.
No, it's not, because it is physically possible for you to be able to do these things without detriment to yourself necessarily.
We don't know that.
Not trying to usurp. Well, look, and there is detriment sometimes if you use technology in a certain way, right? But it's not a necessary feature of that. Let me explain what I mean by the limits of nature. I don't mean us living in caves or living in huts or villages. That's not what I mean. With sticks. That's not what I mean. What I mean is what is permissible without upsetting the order of things. And there is a order of things that has
what specifically
always
do you
been
mean by that?
What I mean is the order of things, meaning what are necessary things that have to happen. And we understand
hold on a second.
Everything decays. Entropy.
So are you talking about, a lot of times I feel when people talk about this stuff, they're talking about facilitating a functional working society. Hypothetically, we could create an entirely different order of things, an entirely different way of doing things that could facilitate a thriving society. I'm saying hypothetically. I'm not like you obviously disagree, but I'm saying as part of my hypothetical, let's say that we can complete a completely reordered structure of society that functions and thrives just like our society today. I'm only posing this as a question to ask you what you mean by the dangers of doing this thing. If we extend life 100 years, what are the dangers of that? Is it that you think society is not going to thrive? Do you think it's going to destroy society in some way, shape, or form?
These are kind of separate questions, because when I say the order of things, I don't mean society.
What do you mean?
Existence. I mean existence, and this is the question that natural
what do you
law
mean
is
by
concerned with.
Existence? The Earth is going to sink into a black hole? What are we talking about here?
Right. I mean things that
space,
you need
demons?
For human existence. No, not space or demons. So, for example, all human beings need to drink water.
Correct.
Live.
Yes.
It is a natural. Okay.
Extending life 100 years, I don't think is going to ruin our chances of getting water.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, well,
okay.
I'm saying there's a general order of things that happen within limitations that define what life is. And I'm saying, Adam, that if we extend our lifespans artificially outside of those limitations, we're going to have a radically different idea of what it means to be living, of
I
what
agree
it means to be
completely.
a limited,
Yes.
what it means to be a limited individual in reality, what it means to adhere to certain principles that have always constituted our existence.
Yes.
And this radical redefinition of humanity is not something that I want to happen, because I think right now we are good enough as we are. Within our limitations, we've been able to do so much. That's not to say that we have to succumb to cancer. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that within our limitations, we can still, there's still so much for us to do in this world, so many more advancements for us to make using the natural properties of this world. But for us to redefine what it means to have a life, what it means to live, that's something that is not congruent with the order of things.
I completely disagree. I think suffering is the source of our is facilitated by our limitations. I think we are on a quest to end human suffering.
How is suffering facilitated by our limitations?
Because people die, people are hurt, people are catastrophically injured, people are depressed. Like, there's all kinds of limitations that are placed on people.
How do you end suffering? How do you end suffering?
You solve these problems.
How?
Well, you could solve
gene editing and microchips in your brain.
Curing cancer. Curing cancer would make a.
Well, Adam wants to be a robot, so
curing cancer would end a lot of suffering. So, but it sounds like you're in favor of curing cancer.
I am.
Okay, so you're in favor of curing cancer.
But people suffer beyond just having ailments.
Oh, I completely agree. I completely agree.
The biggest source of suffering right now for my generation, Gen Z.
Look, I'm saying that suffering is a source of limitations.
Suffering is a multifaceted concept, though, Adam. Some people suffer mentally with depression. Others suffer with ailments, with cancer. Others suffer with ailments in their physical body or with limit. Suffering is so many different things, and it's impossible to get rid of human suffering without completely changing what it means to be a human being. Right. And I don't want to live in a reality where my existence is re-edited to match the designs of some person who has the ability to do this. That is a terrifying prospect.
I agree. First of all, I don't think you can. I think no matter what humans do, unless we evolve into energy beings, I don't think there'll ever be an end to suffering, because without suffering, there's no, without pain, there's no pleasure. Now, obviously, what people define as pain or suffering could radically change. It could be if we're living in some sort of magical utopian future, maybe pain is I lost an internet argument versus I died of cancer. Like obviously, like what defines the suffering?
That's where we're headed.
Well, let me just finish. I would say, what defines the pain or suffering could be drastically lessened. I don't think that the concept of pain or suffering will be eliminated, because I don't think conceptually, it would even make sense to do such a thing. But what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is when we're talking about like natural order and life extension, all this stuff, is if all you're saying, Christian, is that from your opinion, from your subjective moral position, you think we as a society will be worse off if we essentially cured death. I mean, I would disagree with you, but I'm not going to fight that, because that's your subjective moral claim about how you think society's going to go. All I'm curious is that from the objective understanding of natural law, does that necessitate that humans have to die?
It does.
Okay.
Because natural law is about dealing with limitations in the cards that were dealt with and working within those limitations. It's not about complacency. Again, 200 years ago, there was no path to the cure of cancer. Now there is, but that path is still happening within limitations that we as human beings bear. So natural law would say that's fine. It's perfectly fine. But the moment you try to redefine the context in which life exists in its natural state, is the moment natural law gets skeptical. And this is just not my opinion. Look, it's entirely possible that people could, the fusion of man and machine could make a lot of people happy, and we could have a society that's based on happiness or whatever. Society is not what concerns me. existence is what concerns me. Having a good existence, and that is a harmonious existence in accordance with our limitations as a human being. That's what concerns me. And a lot of times, people in society completely ignore our limitations as a human being, and they try to do things that go against them, that fly in the face of them, and that a lot of times leads to disaster. So whether that be someone who overworks themselves with a lot of jobs and is fatigued and ends up getting behind the wheel of a car and crashing into a tree and dying because they didn't know how to pace themselves, how to relax, whether that be someone who stresses out all the time, kind of like me. Well, regardless of what it is, we have to be willing to accept our limitations and live within them and not change them because there's something, it gives some kind of value to our, first of all, it's how things are, but it gives some kind of value to our and meaning to our lives. You know, knowing that one day I'm going to inevitably die, that makes me want to be the best person I can be and live life to the fullest. That makes me want to, do a lot of different things with my life while I still have time. If I didn't think I was ever going to die and I had technology to reinforce that thought, what would my moral calculus be? What would my outlook about life be?
It would definitely be different.
What would my outlook about it
yeah,
would
but
be
you
drastically
would
different.
look at projects
and I
like
don't think that'd be a healthy mindset to have.
You could achieve.
But that wait. That's when you get That's when you. I feel like you're slipping a lot of subjective axioms.
I do too. Yeah,
well,
a lot of
assertions,
or subjective assertions about morality.
What I'm saying is
nature.
what I'm saying is, according to natural law, and this is the enlightened version of natural law. If we were to go beyond a context in which we are as human beings are currently limited, a natural context, how we are, then the principles of natural law would essentially be invalidated.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I just I can perceive
that's subjective.
I can perceive a situation where the Christian of 2022 is arguing with the Christian of like 100,000, BC, who lives in a hunter-gatherer tribe, and I just feel like he would make literally all the same arguments you're making now against our society, saying everything we're doing now is going against the human limitations of 100,000 years ago.
Flying in boats in the sky, and
I can only stick by what I believe in the present, and what I believe in the present is that human beings can do great things within our limitations, and we shouldn't let our limitations take us from greatness.
What I'm saying is that our limitations
are a part of us.
Right.
Yes.
Overcoming our limitations are a huge part of us.
I understand
you never overcome limitations.
I understand the moral intuition that you're hitting upon. You're definitely hitting upon a lot of right-wing Jonathan Haidt moral foundations. Which I agree with are
sacred.
I don't read Haidt. So
you should. But
sanctity, degradation. What foundation?
Well, hold on a second. And I think it's healthy to have, to some extent, the idea that you're talking about. But when you're talking about like limitations in like being objective in nature, like this is where I'm, when you start talking about this being objective, this is where I stumble, because it's like taking a picture and being able to reproduce that is so not. That's such a violation of the limitation. Like recording voice is a violation of the limitations of nature. You could never record voice before technology. That was a complete violation of nature.
No, it's not a violation. You're literally using natural properties to produce something that doesn't really alter who you are. How do you think you're going to
extend life?
No,
of course Adam, you're going to use natural properties.
Let me speak. Let me finish. You're using natural properties to produce something that doesn't fundamentally alter the principles of your nature. Being able to take a picture does not alter the principles of
keep doing this, Christian.
I'm not sure.
No,
you keep inserting this idea, this big idea, like the principles of your nature, which is like a whole another hour and a half conversation.
Well, no, but
because what are the principles?
If you understand natural law, you have to understand what are the principles of human existence. We are limited, and our ability to live can only happen within the context of those limitations. The moment you say the principle of life is the moment you say that the principles of life are no longer about limitations, but they're about your own personal subjective whim, you therefore begin to redefine what it means to be a human being.
Right.
And
I
in
think
that
one of the
context,
things that
natural law,
defines
as it is conceived right now, cannot exist.
without natural law, one of the things that defines humanity is overcoming limitations. That's the big thing humans do.
External limitations.
No, all
External
limitations.
Well,
So
I mean,
what is the
I would
difference
say
between
even
a human
internal,
being?
but
What is the difference between a human being in ancient Greece and a human being right now? Has human nature changed in the past 1,000 years?
Well,
yes, I think this is why even if I grant you the thing of human nature, I think it has. This is part of the problem. I think
How so?
I think a lot of humans' psychological problems and a lot of societal problems we face is the fact that humans did not evolve to live the way that we currently live right now. Humans did not evolve to live in these massive cities where you don't know who you're living with, you don't know your neighbors, where you're just a faceless person in the crowd, where you have all these jobs that are not based around physical labor, but that are based on incredible intellectual labor that humans did not evolve to necessarily do, to be able to talk to anyone on the internet, like and to be, like we see, like kids are so depressed nowadays because they're constantly feeling like they're in their social group, like, because of their phone, they're constantly connected. They feel like they constantly have to perform, feeling they never had to do before. People don't have private time. There's so many like
You're right.
things that we're living right now that I would argue fundamentally go against the nature of humans that we've evolved to live in. And so I guess the way that I look at it is that either we can try to go back, we can return to monkey, which I don't think I don't think it's going to happen ever, or we can keep going forward and say, okay, we need to actually change our nature to suit the way that we're living, so that we are happy going forward. And I think that's the only path that we can.
That is going to happen.
Go for.
Yeah, and I fundamentally disagree.
I
Is
know
it
you do.
possible that we did not evolve to this point, or that certain things in our current cultural condition are just things that in any other context would have also been detrimental? So, for example, imagine if Athens, Greece, had social media back then. Would Socrates' execution have been stopped? I think it would have actually probably been worse, because people would have been talking about Socrates
maybe it would have been
on Twitter,
worse. Maybe
all
he
kinds
would
of
have been
things.
stopped.
And the thing is, the fundamentals of our nature don't really change, even though the conditions we do absolutely do. And there are certain environments that human beings just naturally can't live in. Obviously, you can't live in an environment that doesn't have air, certain temperature, things like that. But I don't think the fact that we have a social media society or things like that was something that we ever could have evolved to. I don't even know what that would look like.
Hey, Christian, we only have about 30. We only have about 30 minutes left, and there's probably a bunch of super chats. So go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, we technically have as long as Christian has, unless there's something you really want to cover, Adam. After that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to stay.
If you don't want to watch the videos, we don't have to. No, we can do whatever. But
as long as the conversation is interesting, which I think is interesting, just keep going.
Okay. Cool.
Well, no, I mean, I guess we just view, or I view nature and what fundamental human nature is very different than you do, because I would argue that Athens, Greece is already a violation of human nature.
No,
humans did not evolve to live in cities. Humans did not evolve to live in tribes of more than 100 people maximum.
So humans are social animals, and cities are simply an extension of that principle.
Yeah, but it gets to it gets to a point where I assume you'd agree. It gets to a point where if you keep extending that, it becomes unnatural. Right?
No, because, well, when you say extending that, do you mean extending the kind of environments we live in? Do you mean extending the kind of relationships we have? So socially, what do you mean extending that?
So, okay, I agree humans are social animals, and say humans evolved to live in tribes of 20 to 80 people or something,
That's how we started off, right?
Well, I don't think, but since we don't have natural selection isn't really it's not really working the same way it used to, because of the way that humans live live life now.
You're correct. We have the ability to prop up certain people who may have certain conditions, and and they're not going to have a certain death, right? If you got certain diseases, and not too long ago, you would have certain death.
Right.
Okay.
So we already
yeah,
have we've already have
how does that have to do with cities though?
Because what I'm saying is humans did not evolve to live in cities, and living in large cities, I think, has a dramatic effect on human psychology because we did not evolve to live in large cities.
So does living in cities have an effect on human psychology? Yeah, any condition that we live in has an effect on our psychology. But I don't think it's a matter of not evolving to it. I think it's a matter of mindset. So, like, for example, a lot of people in the corporate world, right, deal with significant unhappiness and psychological stuff. But is it because a lot of them tend to live in cities, or is it because there are certain things about their life that are not there? Some of them are displeased in their marriages. Some of them don't like their partners. Some of them never wanted to actually do their job, but they decided to go take money over pursuing what they actually wanted. Is the condition that we're in, does that determine our fundamental nature, or is it, things outside of our control that determine our nature, and then our actions which decide how those things interact with our nature? I think it's the latter, because if the condition we're in basically molds who we are, that's a very postmodernist argument. And I reject that. I reject that wholeheartedly.
So I'm gonna ask you a question that's gonna sound like a non sequitur, but it's not. Okay.
It's okay.
What is the point of emotions?
It's like asking me, what is the point of having having a body or whatever? I mean,
no,
at some point, it's emotions are a natural property of man. Bodies are natural properties of man. I don't really see that there has to be a point. This question does not really make any sense.
Okay. Let me ask it a better way.
Okay.
Why did human animal evolve to have emotions at all?
All animals have emotions.
Why do animals? Okay, that's good. A lot of people don't think that. I'm glad we're on the same page.
All animals have emotions.
Right? Okay, There's different
levels, different kinds? Right?
Yes, right, of course. So why did animals evolve to have emotions at all?
I mean, I guess you would probably say, I don't know. I mean, is this like the nature versus nurture thing? I don't know. I mean, the environment. I genuinely don't. I mean, I'm not an evolutionary biologist.
To motivate.
I don't know.
Well, yeah. To motivate behavior, because animals, like especially non-human animals, they don't have a higher level of cognition. The lobster doesn't have the cognitive ability to figure out, like, oh, if I climb the dominance hierarchy of lobsters, I'll have better, mating reproductive success, right? It doesn't have the ability to, like, ration that out.
They have instinct. Right. They have instinct.
Right. But what instinct is emotion. It's something that's pushing. It's saying, well, no, it is, because it's saying, and this is the Jordan Peterson, even the lobsters, they feel depressed when they're at the bottom of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
The reason that people and animals feel sad is because it's the body or the environment or nature's way of trying to motivate a specific type of behavior. And if you're doing the behavior, you're rewarded with feeling happy. If you're not doing the behavior, you're not rewarded, you're punished by feeling sad. That's the point of emotions. It's a biological mechanism to try to get specific behaviors out of specific animals.
Okay, but then you have to ask yourself, how much of that is rational conception and how much of that is just pure instinct? I don't think a lobster has a conception of
it doesn't. Sad. You're completely right. It has no conception, right?
It's pure instinct. So it's motivated by its lower desire.
Yes.
And so how does this have to do with cities and human beings in cities?
So to answer the question, we were saying, why is the person who's working at the job, why do they feel unhappy? We have to say, well, what that means is that they're doing something in their life that's conflicting with whatever their body evolved to want them to do. Okay. And I don't have an answer to that exact question. Is it living in a city? Is it the fact that they're not engaged in manual labor, which we were evolved to do instead of this weird intellectual labor? Is it that they're sitting in an office all day? Like, everything about working in an office is so artificial and so unnatural compared to what humans evolved to do.
I have too much freedom, Sitch.
So do our bodies determine what we believe, how we act? I mean,
I think so.
I mean, so again, this goes back to the free will problem. I don't think that I don't think that evolution made me want to be a political commentator and a fledgling philosopher. In fact, if you want to go just purely biological, no one else in my family has the interest that I really have or is doing what I do. So maybe I'm an anomaly in evolution. But if we are to believe that evolution selects us to have these intelligible goals, I don't think that's the case. I think that we procure interests in our lives by doing things, seeing examples modeled in front of us. I don't believe that evolution and biology just determine the course of our interests and our value systems. If this was the case, then again, it'd be very hard to hold anyone accountable for anything that they do.
Right.
You could just say, "Oh, this is just evolution." So no, I don't.
Well,
I reject that.
why did you decide doing this
that.
instead of being like a truck driver or something?
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a truck driver. I mean, I used to do waiting. I used to wait tables, which a lot of people who have my interest probably would say, I don't know, but I used to do a lot of different jobs.
Why did you make the distinction? What's the difference between waiting tables and what you're doing now? I've worked in a restaurant. I've waited tables. I've been a bartender. I've done all.
Yeah, there's some similarities and some differences. The biggest difference is that, when you're waiting tables, you are.
Oh, go ahead.
When you're waiting tables is a certain kind of work that requires certain areas of your brain to activate, right? Whereas doing the work that I do, dealing with abstractions and concepts, that requires different areas of your brain. It may not really engage your body that much, but why did I decide to do it? Because I wanted to. I really want people. Well, in all honesty, I want to try to give people, as much as I can, my limitations, some value in how they think. I want to help people see the world in a different way than they may see it right now, perhaps a more richer way. And that's just a impulse that I had after I went through several different other jobs that I thought I might. At first, I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm like, let me go be a lawyer. Why? Because I had this disposition, excuse me, towards justice. Then it was like, no, why don't you just go be something else? Why don't you just go be, a zoologist? I'm like, no, or a marine biologist. And I went through all these different ideas, as almost everybody does, by the way, who, in the West, who has these ideas modeled in front of them.
Sure.
They go through all these different ideas, and they eventually arrive at one that they want to do. It's like, why do some women decide to go do careers, and some decide to be, rear babies at the home? I mean, is there a biological impulse? Well, women are more nurturing, but there are enough women that don't want to do that sort of housewife type thing that you have to ask, what really matters? Does it matter what I rationally want to do in this world, or does it matter my evolutionary and biological makeup? I think the former is a more compelling point.
So I want to be clear. I'm not saying that like you or anyone evolved to do whatever job you're doing. I mean, I was actually saying the opposite. I'm saying
that our bodies evolve to do something in that. If you're unhappy, it's a sign, it's a signal. Same kind of thing.
Yes, that's to me, that's a descriptive fact of reality. That if you are unhappy, it's your body signaling something to you that it's unhappy with you doing something that you are not, evolved to do. Now, part of the problem is that since we live in a society that I would argue is so foreign than what we evolved to live as hunter-gatherers, either A, it can be very difficult to figure out what exactly it is that's making you unhappy, or B, it doesn't, like, so much of our current society is structured around almost like tricking our body into doing specific things. That's the entire basis of video games. Is tricking you into thinking that you're succeeding at something when you're really succeeding at doing nothing.
Are you sure? Because
yes.
There are a lot of people. No, I don't think so. I mean, video games are doing something, especially in a social context.
Okay, not remove multiplayer social games. Obviously, there's a social context there. If you're playing a single player game, okay,
you're training your motor skills. You're training your brain to activate new pathways for different kind of problem and decision making, depending on what kind of game you're playing.
Problem solving for what?
Let me be specific. Okay, you're not literally doing nothing. You're obviously doing something, right? Okay. What I mean is that, like, when you complete a little task in a video game, the reason video games are good, or the reason people like video games,
satisfying,
and that they're satisfied by video games, is because video games are preying upon the way our brain chemistry works, and that humans evolved to want to accomplish goals. And video games are basically broken up into creating a series of small goals that, compared to real life, are generally far easier to complete. And
Okay,
thus
I would agree
you
with that.
sort of like video games
Okay.
are essentially a drug that hacks your brain into to hitting those pleasure centers, those reward
Lots
centers
of
for
things are.
accomplishments. Okay,
Yeah,
of
love
course
is
they
a
are.
drug that hacks your brain.
Right.
I mean, being in a relationship and really loving that person, that's a damn drug that hacks your brain, makes you act crazy.
Well, but
I
no, but
mean, there's a
wouldn't
lot
you
of things.
say
I
that?
mean,
But
Does
wait a
it
minute.
take away your
we
free
don't.
will?
Wait a minute.
No,
Wouldn't you say that being in a
marriage can.
relationship?
I read. I read. I don't
Wait, but
know.
wait. Well,
Would you
hold
say,
on.
Sitch?
I
Yeah.
agree that like being in a relationship can change your brain chemistry, but I would assume that you would argue that that is acceptable because that falls within natural law, natural order, where video games don't necessarily fall within natural law, natural order.
Well, the problem is not that they affect your brain chemistry. Everything, a lot of things affect your brain chemistry. The fact that
Right.
I have conversations with you guys or other people, that I'm an extrovert, so like the dopamine in my brain gets rushing, and I get excited. So a
Right.
lot of things change your brain chemistry.
Yes.
The
Yes.
problem is, does it do so in a way that is detrimental to you, that impairs your ability to act, impairs your
Well, I'm not
ability
talking
to
about
live life as you
detrimental because
normally would?
that's a somewhat
Well,
subjective
but
claim.
that's
I'm
the
talking about just
question,
whether
though.
it's natural or not.
It's not a lot of things impair your brain chemistry. Yeah, I mean, or not impair, not impair. A lot of things can manipulate your brain chemistry, even things that are in the natural
Of
world.
course,
I
that's
mean, if you
obviously right.
so I mean, there's nothing wrong with exactly your brain chemistry being manipulated. It just means by what means is it being manipulated, right? Is it being manipulated to send you in an unproductive way, like gaming 24/7 can do? Okay, that's
Mhm.
probably not good, according to natural law, because the whole of your life is being spent in a manner that cannot produce any fruit.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But is it
My only
being
point was that
but
just was regarding to what we were talking about, like with people being unhappy. It's just that humans have evolved to do certain things. Our
okay,
society uses our minds to basically very often sells products, whether video games, food
yeah,
is chemically designed to be addictive very oftentimes.
mm-hmm,
And so to
mm-hmm,
me, I think where I find the weakness of sort of the natural order argument is that I perceive our society as being so detached from what I would consider natural that I don't see how how I don't see how going further with technologies like life extension, to hundreds, if not thousands of years, to me, that's just a continuation of what we're exactly living in. I don't see how that's a
yeah.
violation of natural order, but what we're doing now is not. That's the only argument
Well,
I'm making here.
I understand. I understand your argument. So I don't think that the whole of how many human beings in the West, I'll say the West just to be more specific, live
Hmm.
right now, the cities, the technology, is against the natural order. I think some things that we do with these tools are definitely against the natural order. I think this sort of integration between our digital selves, how we portray ourselves on the internet, things of that kind of sort, and who we actually are as people, that can absolutely be concerning because it's a matter of authenticity. Knowing who you are is a prerequisite of being able to live an orderly life, being able to live a stable life. If you don't know who you are, then you'll run. I mean that causes a lot of problems on many different levels. But you typically run from all kind of different action. There's no consistent principle ordering your behavior if you don't know who you are, and so you live your life in constant searching. And this is why I think there has been a massive impact on my generation with the social media stuff because even at 22, I'm still trying to figure a lot of things out. And I would never presume to know the totality of who I am.
Hmm.
I do presume to know the baseline of who I am, but that's just a foundation. You got to have the bricks, you got to have the windows, you got to have the roof, you got to have all that kind of other kind of stuff. The problem is, a lot of people in my generation get their sense of who they are and a sense of value from an impersonal medium, from technology, from the internet, from a profile they made on a website, from whatever. And this is not really a healthy way to understand yourself. You have to be able to interface with yourself to understand yourself, not interface with something that you created that's external from yourself. It's
Right.
just impossible to understand yourself. And so I would agree in that way, in the sense that our society is so wedded to the digital self I agree with you. There is a serious problem that upsets natural order, but it's not healthy. It's leading to problems, leading to big problems, depression, leading to suicidality, leading to big problems. Having said that, I don't think the fact that we have technology or live in big cities that are congested and condensed, or the fact that some people tend to be unhappy in those circumstances, means that we as human beings, or they as human beings, didn't evolve to handle that. Maybe there's just a set of circumstances that go against their expectations of what they wanted in life that have nothing to do with evolution and much more to do with what's been modeled in front of them. How much does family life or how you grew up have an impact on your expectations as an adult? There are plenty of people who grew up in families that wanted them to be,
Sure.
mom and dad were a lawyer, you go be a lawyer. And someone who didn't really want to be
Sincerity.
a lawyer at the bottom of their heart, they end up going and working in a law office and wanting to blow their brains out because that's not what they wanted.
Right.
But it's that they didn't evolve to do that, or they just didn't want to do that in the first place. Because there are some very smart people that can do any career they want who pick certain kinds of careers. Because again, human beings have limited time, limited capability. So I don't think I would disagree with you that we evolve to do certain kinds of careers. I think that.
Well, I didn't say that. So.
Well, you said that if someone is unhappy, that means that their body is saying that they're not doing what they evolved to do, and that's just a very weird idea. As if evolution is intelligible, as if I don't think that's the case.
It's not. That's the problem. It's a blind system.
So if someone
that's the issue.
If someone is unhappy, it's possible that their evolution has nothing to do with it.
Well, no, no. Like for example, you can be unhappy if you don't get enough sunlight or something, right?
Exactly.
Right, but that to me, that's because of evolution. It's a blind system. Like it's because you don't need to go outside anymore, but you still because we evolved to basically get vitamin D from the sun and be existing outside all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you don't have that, all of a sudden it's affecting your brain chemistry.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily right or wrong for someone to not go outside. I'm not saying it's right or wrong for someone to get a job in office somewhere. I'm just saying if you are unhappy, that's the reason is because you're not satisfying, or your brain or your biochemistry for whatever reason is confused to think you're not happy. There could be something, you could be unhappy at your job, and for all you know, it has nothing to do with the job. It's because you're eating some food that's fucking with your brain chemistry, that's making you unhappy, and you just have no idea. Well, so I'm not saying that evolution is telling you your job is the wrong job or something.
Our emotion. Well, here's the question that kind of goes at the center of your claim here. Are emotions merely biological processes that react to stimuli, or are they something more?
Emotions are set up. Emotions are set up as biological processes.
They have an evolutionary base.
Right.
Yes,
I'm not. Obviously, are they just that, though? Obviously, culture and upbringing and the way that you're taught to view the world will have a profound impact on how you feel those, or when you feel those emotions, and even how you feel those emotions.
How much of which is at play in our emotions?
They both are. I can't give you a specific number for each situation, obviously, and I think it's different for every person.
And this is the source of my skepticism that, it's our evolution that's primarily driving our emotions, as opposed to other things that, may have nothing to do with our evolution. And that's where my rejection comes from.
Okay. I think there's just some confusion with what I'm saying. I think maybe it would be helpful to say evolution is the hardware, and what you're taught throughout your life is the software. Is that a little bit clearer?
Yes.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not. Yeah. Okay. That's all I meant. Okay.
Yeah. This is how we obtain clarity through having these conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
You believe evolution drives some behavior, right? Just not all of it.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Well, drives. I do believe we have certain drives. Absolutely, yes. I just don't think that controls us.
Obviously, the whole
the biological determinists. The biological determinists say that our innate emotions and wants and biological processes drive us.
This is why. Hold on. This is why we're going against your natural rights argument, because all of human nature is about fighting our Well, like all of society is about fighting our natural inclinations. Like all of culture is about fighting our natural inclinations.
Yeah, we were having a
I don't
conversation
quite agree with
before
that.
you came on about the hero's journey and stories.
Yeah.
And we were saying how, a hero is generally the person who is willing to potentially sacrifice their life and even their reproductive
Mm.
success for the good of the group, the good of,
And that is
the
way
whole.
against
That's
evolution.
how the hero myth. That's how the hero mythos is portrayed. Now, is that
Right.
really heroism? There are.
Oh no.
Well, but that's a different. That's an
I-
entirely different question.
No,
Whether
no,
that
no,
really
no,
is
no.
heroic or
They are
not.
both
So that's how it's
connected.
portrayed.
I don't think that's a mythos that a lot of people convince themselves of.
No, but that bleeds into Adam's point, which is that he's basically saying that a lot of culture and civilization or civilizing of people is to sort of work against the natural selfish impulses that humans tend to have.
Yeah. People are socially conditioned to go against their natural inclinations a lot of times. I
Right.
agree. Hmm?
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's a good
I
thing,
agree.
right? And it's going
Not
against
always.
nature.
No. I don't think that. I think self-interest. I don't like the term selfishness. That's too much baggage. But self-interest is the basis of society.
I
Right.
don't disagree with that.
And if and in a society
But
that
you
says
you
you
wouldn't
need to be
extend that.
altruistic,
You wouldn't extend that to might makes right though, obviously.
of course, no, and they're not even that related, by the way. Might makes right is saying the person who has the most strength, which is a conditional statement. All human beings have self-interest. That's a universal statement. So there's a categorical difference. No, it's not even close to might makes right,
Well,
But
but
there's a confusion. People think
we've
sorry, go ahead.
like in you do agree though that in nature might makes right is the rule.
No, I think in nature the fittest do survive, but that does not confer any sort of moral quality. The fittest could be a bad, in a human society, the most strongest person could be evil and they could be bad. And that's not good. Same thing. I don't
So
want to ascribe
when a
those terms like
lion
more natural contexts.
when a lion eats
I
a
don't want to ascribe the
zebra
same
though, it's
terms.
like it is might makes right. If the zebra could
It's
eat the
not
lion,
might
it would.
makes right. It's not, well, yes, and that's the law of the jungle, and that's not
Well,
necessarily
that's
the
what
law
I'm
of nature.
saying. Hold
No,
on. So the law.
there's a
What
difference
is different?
between
What is the difference between the
natural,
law of the jungle and the law of nature?
because natural law is
No, I'm not
is
talking. Wait.
particularly.
I'm not talking about natural law. I'm asking you a very
What do you
simple
mean?
question. It's just
Adam,
you
you
have
just
to
said
you
what
have
is
to
the law of
complicate.
nature.
You have to. This is like needlessly
Okay,
complicating it.
Adam? What's the question, Adam? I wasn't
Adam,
listening at all, so I missed everything
I'm
that you guys were
I'm
talking
just
about.
asking you.
Yes.
Humans do not exist. Okay, this is before humans even evolved.
Okay.
What is what is natural law back then? It's might
Dinosaurs
makes
roamed
right.
the earth.
It's
It
who
is-
has
no,
the
you-
power has the power.
When you say might makes right, that's typically used to make a moral claim. Survival of the fittest.
He's
is
not
what
going to
you
answer.
what you
Let's
mean.
move on to
No.
Superchats. This
This
is
is
like
no. Adam,
major
no.
dog.
I understand what's happening. Okay. Remember the beginning of the conversation. Christian's using when he says natural law and when he says rights.
Yeah, but
he
I'm
doesn't
divorcing it from natural law and rights.
Stop. Let me finish. When he says natural law and when he says rights, he doesn't mean it in the colloquial way in which you are meaning it when you're having this conversation. When he says someone has a right to something, he means this is a principle that necessitates the existence of the entity. Okay. Might makes right does not necessarily, necessitate the existence of an animal existing. Okay. Do you understand?
Where does might make right exist in the world?
It exists in
nowhere.
Nature, but it exists in nature.
It does.
That's not what he means when he says natural law.
I wouldn't use that phrasing.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about natural law. Natural law has to do with human rights.
So what's the question?
I'm not asking about human rights.
Okay,
humans have not even evolved yet.
Okay, what is the question?
That's not true.
Well, no, because I'm assuming you think. I'm assuming animals. Wait, I'm assuming natural rights.
God,
in the sense that we've been talking about.
It's so simple.
Please
it's so
stop.
simple.
I'm assuming that natural rights in the conversation that we've been talking about applies to non-human animals as well.
Look,
correct?
he said already. He said, you're talking about the law of the jungle. Okay, if
Wait.
you want to call it the law of the jungle, that's fine. But I'm talking about might makes right, which takes place in nature.
What do you mean by that term? What do you mean by that?
Well,
Yeah, survival of the fittest takes
what do
place in
you
nature.
mean?
I agree.
Let me ask you.
Chat.
What do you mean when you
Survival
say
of
the
fittest
law of the
takes place
jungle?
in nature.
What do you mean
What
when you
I
say the
mean
law of the
is,
jungle? Give me your definition of the law of the
simply
jungle.
mean the way that the wild is ordered. The way the wild is ordered.
So
You
suddenly
have a
he's
hierarchy.
figured it out.
No, you have predator and prey. What do you mean I figured it? I have no idea what you're saying. You have predator and prey relationships. But when you say might makes right, that is not typically used to describe the wild.
He's
that is
literally
typically used
he's
to
literally
make a
arguing
moral
that might
claim
makes
in a
right
social-
doesn't exist in
No,
nature.
wait, what? Okay,
That's
wait.
not what I said.
That's not what we said. What is
Christian?
what is the
You
question?
should become an
Adam,
attorney.
what is-
I think you'd
Adam,
be
Adam,
an
first of all,
excellent attorney.
Adam, I want you to breathe. Okay, remember what we talked about?
I'm
We
not
talked
triggered.
about no.
Okay,
You're a little triggered. We've talked about no elephanting.
I'm not. Listen, I'm
The
not
law of the
triggered.
jungle
Okay,
is playing out right now in Adam's head.
I'm not triggered. I just
Okay, you are. Okay, what is the question? I guess I don't really follow. What is the question you're asking, Adam?
Well, I asked about might makes right is the order or the process. What do you want to call it of nature?
Okay,
Nature exists under the law of might makes right. Do you
Okay,
agree with me, Sitch? Or
I do.
okay,
Now,
so
Christian,
but
your
Christian
response
said
to that
Christian said
is-
no, that is incorrect. And I mean, this is a recorded
No,
call, so we can
no.
go back and just
Okay,
listen
well,
to it.
Yes.
maybe he misspoke. I don't know.
Christian said
What I-
no.
what
I
There
said
is what you're
I
talking
said
about
is-
hey, let me finish. Okay,
Wait, Adam, it doesn't
you'll
matter.
have your turn.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We can ask him now. Okay.
Okay.
So, in the wild, survival of the fittest is the rule, right?
No,
so you have predator and
you're
prey.
changing it again. Why are you changing
Can-
it? Nobody said
Because,
survival of the fittest.
Adam,
I said might
I
makes
know.
right. It's completely different. Look,
that's
you
the
can
problem, Adam.
you can
No,
survive.
Adam,
You can survive without
Okay,
killing
Adam,
people
You're not
indiscriminately.
giving me enough time.
Okay,
You're not
give-
giving
give-
me enough time to explain myself.
Well,
And
but
just making this
he-
conversation
Look,
very
Look, the
difficult.
first
Wait, why- okay,
words
why are
out
you
of your
saying
mouth
myself?
are changing it.
Okay, why are you changing it from might makes
I
right to
d-
survival of the fittest?
Because I don't think might makes right in this context applies. Here's
Okay.
why I don't think that. Generally, when we say the term might makes right, we mean that whoever is the strongest gets to decide what is correct and what is incorrect, what is moral, what is immoral. Now, Adam is not using it in that context,
Right.
which is why I think a different term like survival of the fittest
Would
is more better
completely
fit, because
change
that's-
what I mean. I'm
It does
using
mean
these
something very
words
different, though, right?
because I am trying to communicate something to you.
Okay,
And you
do you-
changing
do you-
those words
okay,
means you
sure.
don't care what I'm trying to communicate
No,
to you,
that's not
which
what I'm
is
saying.
fine. I mean,
He
we
said-
can
he
move
said-
on.
Wait, he said might makes right. He thinks has a moral claim in it. Which, when you say
I
might makes right,
disagree. How can
I
it have a
understand that.
moral
You-
claim in it?
you don't think it has a moral claim in it.
Okay,
Well,
like,
he
we're
is
disagreeing.
inserting the moral claim, which is fine.
No, I'm
I mean,
not.
but
No,
I
I'm
just
not.
I feel like he's making a lot of assertions
Well, so wait,
here.
so Christian, are you saying that you don't think animals operate under might makes right because only humans could operate under that, right?
I don't think they have the conceptual framework to operate under might makes right, but I do think they have survival of the fittest. Meaning, yes, if a lion can go ahead and get prey that is weaker than him and he's stronger, that'll happen. So it's
Christian,
survival of the fittest.
can you-
I think
I don't
just
think
just
that
in a couple
survival-
sentences,
I
can you
don't think
explain to us the
survival-
difference
I
between might
don't
makes
think-
right?
I don't think survival of fitness is a good comparison to might makes right. 'cause
No,
they
not
mean-
at
They
all.
mean different things.
Completely
So
different.
It is.
right, because might makes right means
okay,
that
Adam. Let's
whatever
say I accept
is-
your definition.
Okay.
What's the question? Let's say I accept the definition. What's the question?
The question?
Yeah, let's say I accept your definition of might makes right. Let's say I accept it. What would be the question that flows from that?
Well, also the chat wants you to define what you mean by might makes right, Adam.
Might makes right is do I have to define might makes right?
Yes.
Please.
Whoever's strongest can do whatever they want
And this applies
Okay,
to
so
non-human
that-
animals, right?
without consequence. I mean, it's the law of nature. Is it?
Okay.
Well, how is this complicated?
Okay. No.
Okay.
Just sure. Right. yes, and in the wild, this is the case. Yes, in the wild,
Well,
the way you
and
describe it, in the wild,
in
this is the
human
case.
societies, sometimes this is the case. Obviously, in autocracies where Gestapos can run around and do whatever they want, might makes right. They've appropriated the law of nature
Well,
societally.
well, no, in human societies, they are now violating
See,
people's rights. They
okay,
are. I mean, might does not make right
I
in human
got you.
society. Yeah.
We should
I
read. We should read super chats to Christian. There's a lot of
Sure.
questions for Christian, so.
I'm sure. I've been enjoying this, though.
Satoshi was a Reploid for 50 knock knock says, isn't the point of heaven eternal life without suffering?
Yeah, but that's in a totally different context. Like heaven's in like sort of spiritual, metaphysical context. So, yeah, but I mean, we're no longer human at that point. If you believe in the Judeo-Christian idea, well, not Judeo. If you believe in the Christian idea of heaven, then we're not even. There is a completely different set of rules that you play by.
But this
in that
is
context.
the goal. This is the thing that is offered to Christians for not misbehaving. Correct?
For avoiding sin, yeah, absolutely. For not misbehaving, yeah.
Eternal.
And forget. Well, more so for giving their life to Christ.
So,
Right.
but
Eternal life
by
absolutely
your
is.
earlier definition, this is hell. This isn't heaven. Like I thought,
No,
suffering is what
by my earlier
makes us human,
well,
and
again,
eternal
I
life
said-
is a hellhole.
I said in the limitations of human life,
Okay.
heaven goes to a different realm. Heaven's in a different, completely realm. If you believe in that stuff,
Okay.
I do. But
Are you? Okay, I was going to ask. You're religious? Okay.
I am. I'm Christian.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess the argument you'd say is that you're not human when you're in heaven.
Exactly.
So,
You're a spirit when you're in heaven.
right. Okay. Gotcha.
Brunswick.
Do you think that's part? Do you think that that's part of why the idea of like immortal life as human bothers you?
No, not really.
Okay. Stephen Michael Davis for $5 says this is a hell of a crossover. Thank you, Stephen Michael Davis.
Stephen's great. Great guy.
Yes. Brainfer, thanks so much for being a free will seeker for 5 months, says stating that rights are taken away implies that they belong to the individual to begin with. Our resident status thinks you are owned by society. Okay. Saying that rights are taken implies that they belong to the individual to begin with. Well, wait, are you when you say people, when you say that individuals have natural rights, isn't that what you're saying? I mean,
yeah, what I'm saying is they belong to individuals. They belong to individuals, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't use the term taken away, and again, I don't want to get us into a long, drawn out thing.
I feel like we're drifting into the realm of sophistry here. I gotta be honest with you, Christian.
I don't think
everything
we are.
is coming off as complete sophistry. You're arguing there's a difference between might makes right and law of the jungle. It's complete sophistry. I just have to call it out.
No, it's not sophistry.
Well,
it's me trying to be.
You're talking over me, and the chat is accusing me of talking over you. Listen, I can't even make a point.
Adam, I'm trying to be precise with language.
No, you aren't.
I think one of the complicated.
That's ridiculous. From the guy who just 10 seconds ago wanted to change might makes right to survival of the fittest. You are not being precise with your language. You're being a sophist.
In that moment, I was trying to.
You're trying to argue. Okay, that's all you're trying to do. You're not actually trying to come to some resolution. No, you're just arguing, which is cool. But
let Christian reply.
I came here to share my insights about post-liberalism.
I know we didn't talk about it at all.
We've been bombarded with this sophistry. We can't even get to that. You've completely
I do not think
you've completely destroyed all of your credibility.
I don't think he's being sophistic in this conversation. I think
there's not much more I can say.
Yeah, I think that
you seem dead set on the idea that I'm a sophist. So,
yeah.
Well, I think this is the exact same.
I can't.
I think this is the exact same.
Can't change. Yeah, I can
Adam, what do you mean? Wait, Adam, why do you think that this is sophistry? I don't agree with this at all.
Because he's saying that he's being precise with his language. He's not being precise with his language. We had a complete discussion about suffering and the suffering is limitations and eternal life,
Right.
All of that is completely blown out of the water by this one super chat, and now he's completely changing his
Wait,
argument.
how is that blown out of the water by?
Well, the whole goal of motivating people with Christianity is exactly right. It's about eternal life and an end to all suffering. That's the goal of humanity.
Okay.
But he's saying earlier,
there are
he's
people
saying
that don't have Christian beliefs.
Who's talking over who now? Anyway, let's move on.
I don't.
I'm sick of being accused of talking over people when people are talking over me. I'm in the middle of making a point, and somebody's just like blathering on, and then I'm the one that's getting accused.
First of all, there's been a lot of talking over of a lot of people.
Yes, of course, because we won't get a word in edgewise if we don't.
No. Okay. I don't see how. Again, I don't see how the super chat destroys any of the arguments.
It does. It completely destroys the entire thing that we have.
I already knew his response before he said it, which is that, as he said, that when you're dead and you're in heaven, you're not existing according to human life, and you would be according to the natural laws of the universe that are set out by God.
Do you believe? Do you believe in an afterlife, Christian, or do you believe in heaven? You don't believe in heaven.
Heaven is the afterlife.
So do you believe in heaven?
Good.
What is your concept of heaven, please?
It's the place where God is. That's the literal definition in the Bible. It's where God is.
Do people go there?
Of God. Some people.
Okay. So he believes in heaven, Sitch.
Right. That doesn't violate anything
this is a Christian
earlier.
belief.
I don't understand why you think it does.
Maybe I missed something here.
Yes.
Earlier, when we were talking about human suffering.
Yes.
And whether or not, getting rid of human suffering would be good or not. He seemed to be implying that getting rid of human suffering would not be good because suffering is what defines our lives and makes us happy.
Yes.
Okay.
As humans.
Right. But
as humans.
Isn't heaven?
You're not human when you're in heaven, Adam.
You're not. You're a spirit if you're in heaven. If you believe Christian theology.
Okay.
Why is this? I don't understand what you don't understand. This is, to me, it's pretty basic.
Oh
I don't
my
understand
God.
why you're confused by this.
So the thing that I'm missing here is that the heaven people, their lives are ultimately better because they have eternal life and no suffering. But that has to do with the fact that they're not human. So let me get this straight. Hold on. Let me finish. No interrupting here. Let me finish. Human beings, they become happy and ecstatic with suffering and no eternal life.
No.
Now
They don't
other beings, other beings are okay. Explain to me then.
It's not that humans become happy with suffering. It's that humans can only conceptualize happiness because they can conceptualize suffering.
Right.
Okay. And that without one, the other wouldn't exist, because humans can only. Because of the limitations of our biological nature, humans can only understand things by what things are not. I'm not
quite sure that I agree with that. You guys brought it up. I let it go. I let it go because you guys were having your conversation. Yes. And I didn't want to interrupt because I don't like interrupting people when they're having a conversation.
Even if you don't, hold on. Even if you don't agree with that, let me just finish real quick. The argument that would be made going forward would be that because of our biological nature, that we only understand suffering because we understand happiness. We only understand love because we understand sorrow or hate or whatever the opposite of love is. Okay, but when you're dead, you're not. You would be in a completely different existence because you're not going to have your whatever makes you feel the way you do that's happening in your brain. Obviously, wouldn't exist if you're a spirit in fucking heaven, Adam. So that's why I'm saying, like,
context.
It's not right. It doesn't. God. Yeah. So it doesn't. That's why I'm saying that
painful.
This claim, you can disagree with this because you're an atheist, but I'm saying that this claim does not contradict anything he said so far.
So painful.
Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I got it. I understand now. Listen, I get it. In heaven, you're an energy being, and energy beings don't experience any suffering, and they have eternal.
You don't really know what. I mean, I would say you don't really know what.
They don't structure their lives around suffering like we do, but that's okay.
Okay.
Brunswick Green. Oh no, you're doing the super chats, but go ahead.
Was there anything you wanted to add, Christian, or did I explain?
No, not really. Okay. I mean, no.
I've Christian. Just because you're a sophist today doesn't mean doesn't mean that you all. Well,
All right,
look,
stop.
look,
insulting
he's
me.
Yeah,
he's
stop. Why are you
demoral.
being
He's
mean?
My
to-
integrity. No,
He's
no, Adam,
demoralized
my
by
integrity
it.
is something I take very seriously.
Right.
No,
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm not demoralized. I am perplexed. I am perplexed that you feel so confident to assert that someone's a sophist just because there was a confusion in language that the person who you think is a sophist did his best to get clarity about.
I don't
Sophists
believe
do
that.
the opposite.
I
They
don't-
change
I
the
don't
meaning of
believe
words
that.
and then they assert that and then they assert that their meaning is correct. I was doing inquiry. I was not doing
No, you-
prescription. And so I'm
You
perplexed.
changed
I'm
the
many
language
things. I'm
I
many things right
used
now.
purposely
Oh,
3
Jesus.
times in a
Okay.
row.
Yeah, but
No,
you could.
Adam, it was a misunderstanding. And if you can't accept that, that says more about your character than does mine.
I'm fully Christian. I'm fully prepared to accept that it was a misunderstanding. Okay,
I hope so.
that's fine.
Very good.
And I the only reason that I'm saying this is because I realize that calling you a sophist is like World War III. Okay, you
Well,
don't.
it's an insult.
Inappropriate.
What do you mean? You're calling him bad faith.
Incorrect. An attack on integrity.
Yes. I think that the conversation we had with Christian was good so far. So I don't think it's I don't think he first of all I don't think he is actually
You did much better at having the conversation than I did, but I just
Well, no, you guys talked for like an hour before I started talking. So
I just like the whole idea that we can't even have a simple conversation about might makes right. That's
Yeah, but you can
that's so
disagree.
bad.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
That is
Okay,
so
Adam.
bad.
Adam, what did Christian? Can you steelman Christian's position on might makes right?
I don't want to. I just want to move on. Seriously.
Okay, well,
I
we
just
can move on
I
then.
feel like we're
Yeah,
gonna.
but if we're gonna move on,
I
you have to
feel
let
like
it go.
I'm gonna.
Wait, we
well,
can
no,
move on.
wait a
But you
second.
have to let it go. Okay,
I've-
you have to be like Elsa. You have to let it go.
Listen, the only
Yes.
one that's hanging on to this is Christian.
You
okay?
just called him a sophist like 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, but if
You're-
we go down that road again, I'm going to use the S-slur again because he's going
No,
to start
I'm saying
changing the thing that I
you-
said and then interrupting me when I'm trying to make it clear.
You understand
We
that
can all-
calling
we
someone a
can-
sophist is calling them like a liar or bad food. I think Christian is completely justified in being upset by that.
Well, wait a second here. And Christian, you can let us know. People can participate in sophistry unknowingly, and which is what I believe Christian is doing. So I don't think he's deliberately participating in sophistry. I think he's being an unknowing sophist.
And if I were to get involved in this conversation, you would accuse me for being a sophist by saying that sophistry is an act, like a knowing overt action. And so I'm not going to do that, Adam. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to let's move on to the next super chat.
Christian,
Okay.
just we had a disagreement the other day over straw manning. Can straw manning be intentional or unintentional?
I mean, I think if you misrepresent someone's argument, you're doing it. You have to be held accountable for that.
Well, wait a second.
I
here.
mean,
let's say I misrepresent your argument, but I do it
sophistry-
unknowingly.
Okay.
You're interrupting again, but it's okay. I'm going to let it go as long as the chat realizes that
As
I'm
you
being
pointed out, for
magnanimous.
10 minutes,
No,
but
I just,
okay.
it's so ridiculous. Like people
Oh my
interrupt me all the
God.
time, and like all the chat
Please.
does is like
let's
get on me.
move on, please.
Don't be
No,
petty.
I don't want to. I don't want to. Okay, thank you, Sitch.
Yes. Okay.
Listen, Christian.
Yes.
Someone can unintentionally, they pick up an argument somewhere that is an obvious straw man of, say, libertarianism. I'm sure you get thrown arguments at you all the time that are, a straw man of your view on some particular aspect of liberty or libertarianism. If that person doesn't know that it's a straw man, that they actually believe this is the actual argument that libertarians are putting forward, would that person be guilty of straw manning, or are they innocent?
No, they're guilty.
Okay,
They're straw
good.
manning,
I like
but-
now. Let's.
No, they're straw manning, but I mean, they're just doing so out of ignorance.
Right.
I know what sophistry is. I know what sophists did, and what I did was not sophistry. I understand what Socrates dealt with in ancient Greece. I know what sophistry is. What I did was not sophistry. It was inquiry. It was sussing out definitions. And that's not the same thing.
No,
as sophistry.
Listen, Christian. I'm gonna do this. I'm trying to go in full dad mode here. Okay, I'm trying to be as nice as possible here.
Okay.
But you, what you did, what you,
Jesus, man.
can I
Yes.
speak?
Yes.
What you did was 3 times in a row, you changed my language and then started going on a lecture about philosophy and might makes right and all. None of that related to anything that I was saying. So to say that you were, participating in this magnanimous back and forth of inquiry is just a misunderstanding of the interaction that we had. And I don't think it's helpful for you to see it that way.
I'm willing to entertain that. Now, here's what I would say. I would say that I thought you were describing something that could be better described with a different term.
Oh, so you're
and I posed that term too. No, that's not necessarily what I was doing. I was posing a term for your consideration so you could tell me if that term was better suited for your argument. I was not trying to manipulate what you were saying. Those are two different things. And I posed it in an open-ended fashion as well.
I completely
Sophists
disagree.
don't do that.
I completely disagree.
That's fine. Yeah, that's your right.
That's your right. That's your natural right.
Christian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Look, I can we just, for a wrap up, just in case people are listening and don't know what sophistry means, I think having a definition of sophistry would be helpful. You're the philosophy guy. Why when I call you a sophist is it so triggering?
Because sophists, one of the hallmarks of sophistry is manipulation of language. And I was not trying to manipulate your words. I was trying to give you a different concept to describe the same thing you were talking about for your consideration. That's not the same thing as saying manipulating your words. You're trying to, hide or obfuscate the truth, which is what sophists were all about.
Right.
They were about doing that. Okay. That's not what I was trying to do.
Dirty, postmodern neo-Marxists and ancient.
But if somebody does that, obviously, if somebody does that unintentionally, is it still sophistry or is it not sophistry?
I
mean, I
still
see
be sophistry, but I didn't do it.
Well, no. Let's talk about. Let's talk about somebody else.
I think sophistry has to be intentional. I don't see how you could unintentionally do.
He already disagreed with you on the straw man. So you're.
It's a straw man. I think you have a greater argument there. I mean, if I'm looking, the definition of sophistry is the use of fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving.
All right.
I mean, it literally has the word intention in the definition. So.
Okay. Do
Christian,
we have any more super chats?
Christian,
there is, but
Christian, you have to look at this like a growing experience. Okay, this is not the end of the world here.
Don't condescend me, Adam. Don't do that.
I'm trying. Yes, I'm trying to like.
Adam, this exercise.
Maybe this is coming off as condescending. Sitch, how am I doing here? Is this coming off? Is this coming off as
0 out of 10 right now?
Well, how do I do it without coming off as condescending?
I think we just have to move on.
Okay, we'll move on.
Okay. Andrew Clark for $2 says, Sitch, please read chapters 8 and 9 of Locke's Second Treatise of Government. I'll get to it eventually, Andrew. Have you read Locke's very boring Second Treatise of Government, Christian?
I don't think it's boring. I think it's quite enlightening, but yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes,
I need to read it because we've been arguing with, I don't know if you've been following, Carl has like a whole thing about how he thinks liberalism is based on 5 false assumptions. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I read his article. He wrote an article about it.
How do you feel about that?
I think he has some good. I don't remember the entire article, but I think he has some good points. I think that a lot of people don't see liberalism, classical liberalism, in its proper condition as a minimum requirement for social engagement, for the basis of government, as opposed to a complete and utter social system, right? Because a lot of the times people who are critiquing classical liberalism, like the post-liberals, would say, well, classical liberalism doesn't actually make way for virtue, doesn't make way for familial relationships, doesn't make way for these things that we need to be fulfilled. And what I would say is that it's not supposed to. It's like giving someone a hammer and then saying, okay, go build something, but don't build in this way, this way, this way. Right. But you can still build what you want to build as long as it falls within certain boundaries. Now, you have to go to other sources to get the proper context for where to build, how to build.
Right.
So that's basically yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay. Brain for $2 says nothing confirms free will quite as well as regret.
That was aimed at me.
Is that true? Nothing confirms free will as regret. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I think just because just because you regret something, you act and do something, and then it doesn't work out for you in the way you thought it would or wanted
That
to,
doesn't
and then you
follow
regret
from
it.
me either.
Yeah,
Doesn't follow
so
from me either.
I
not
was
sure it's a
making
free
the
will
argument
process.
that when I was 20 and getting high and going surfing instead of going to class, that I didn't have free will then, and now that I'm older, I
Right.
do have free will. So
Right.
free will's tough. I don't know. Like the last interaction, probably not a lot of free will going on,
No.
but I'm trying. Like I feel the free will is back again. But I said if I could go back, like I'd change things. I would try to, and even the term weak-willed. What do you think weak-willed means?
Right. It means just following your wanton desires,
Yeah,
your
it means
emotions.
not
Sure.
engaging your free will machine.
Well,
So
willpower doesn't exist according to Scott Adams. So we're
way.
wasting our time here. Yeah. He could be right. I don't know. Oof Yeet McGee for $15. Thanks so much. Says it seems like mindfulness is a factor in free will discussions. Doing something out of habit unconsciously is just a stimuli response. It's just stimuli response situation versus making a conscious decision to do something. I would say that, I mean, under how I'm defining free will, you can make a conscious decision or you believe you're making a conscious decision to do something, and it's still, really just a stimulus response situation. And I think that's kind of, I have a very different definition of free will than Christian does. So I think that was the hang up. But Red Tiger for $10 says, watching Sunday stream, and I gotta say, Doomer is totally wrong. Sitch has impeccable media takes. Look at that. Thank you. Perfect and flawless each one. I'm gonna assume that there's no hint of sarcasm in this. Speaking of which, do you have any thoughts on StarCraft 2 story? Listen, Red Tiger is trying to butter me up so I can debate him about StarCraft 2. Okay. It almost worked, Red Tiger. It almost worked.
Are you any good at that? Will you beat him?
He wants to debate about the story.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Have you played StarCraft, Christian? Are you familiar?
This is so weird.
Okay.
So it's like a video game that you're going to have a debate about the video game?
About the story of the video game, yeah.
Right. Okay.
How is that different than having a debate about like whether a movie story is good or not?
Oh, I guess you're right. I guess it's like a single player game. So you play some story out, right? You don't play against other
there's
people.
a single player campaign, there's a multiplayer
right.
Mode that the multiplayer mode obviously doesn't have a story, but
you should debate, and then for the final, act, you actually play the game against each other.
There you go. I'm not very good at StarCraft, so that probably wouldn't go well for me. Brain for $5.
Christian is doing. Do you? I have a question for you, Sitch.
Yes.
Is the move that Christian doing here evolutionarily inspired?
I don't know what move.
Well, he's obviously, his feelings have been hurt by the exchange.
Yes.
He's being very sulky.
Yes.
And
I'm not.
I mean, you are.
I'm just. I'm just.
Look, I'm trying.
I'm being quiet for it.
I'm trying to extend olive branch. I've tried a couple times.
You understand that calling out someone's behavior as being sulky is the exact opposite of extending an olive branch at him.
Well, it worked because he perked up now. He's getting back in the game. I mean,
oh God.
So you.
I was supposed to be the autistic one here. What is going on?
Wow.
Okay.
Wow is all I have
Do
to
you
say.
do you disagree though? I mean, I feel like okay.
I think Christian has been demoralized. I think he has
yes,
justification for being demoralized.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
and the thing is,
it's working. I feel bad.
Two.
I mean,
I respect you two a lot. I've been watching you two for years.
Thank you.
And especially you, Adam, and the fact that this was the interaction, that's very disappointing. And you talk about a growing moment for me. Hopefully it's one for you as well.
Well,
Because, I mean, seriously,
I
dude,
do take some of the blame.
you don't.
Not all of it.
I hope so. Well, okay.
Yeah, but
I mean,
you're saying,
this could have gone a different way.
It could. Listen, Christian likes us. He says he respects us, and then you're just mean to him.
What do you mean?
You're such a meanie, Adam. You're such a meanie.
Hold on. I said I would take some of the blame.
Okay, but
what's the matter with that?
Because you feel bad, that Christian feels bad. Okay, you just have to accept that. You just have to accept that. Okay, you have to accept your responsibility in that role. And grow.
I do.
And change as a person.
I can't. I can't take it.
I know, but that's the penalty you must pay for losing control of your elephant. This is the punishment. This is the suffering that teaches you to learn going forward. Now I get to be condescending, Dad, okay?
I'm used to it with you, though.
I know, that is true. How true is that,
I
Chad?
eat condescending for lunch. I think we'll get past this, Christian. I think you and I will still be, well, I don't know, the best of friends, but we will definitely be friends.
I hope so.
I'm open to that.
Yay. Okay. We're building bridges here until I read the next super chat, which will start another fight. Brain for $5 says, you can't escape the infinity. The doomsday paradox waits with hungry teeth for the hubris of all these immortality schemes. Death awaits all. Well, I mean, even if humans could make themselves theoretically immortal, I assume they'd want to die eventually. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to live like forever. So I guess I agree if that's what you mean, question mark. I don't know what the doomsday paradox is. Is that like a thing?
You should.
I don't know. You don't know what that is? Okay.
Oh, I wasn't really paying attention to the super chat.
Do you know what the doomsday paradox is?
Can you paraphrase it for me? Is there a question?
No, Brain just said you can't escape affinity, death waits us all.
So it's just basically a statement.
It's just Brain being Brain.
Okay.
The doomsday paradox is a probabilistic argument that claims to predict the future number of members of human species given an estimate of the total numbers of humans born so far.
Interesting.
What is the estimate? It says it's unlikely that more than 1.2 trillion humans will ever live.
Well, that's sad.
I don't see how you could. I mean, if you add in like life extending, if people basically become, I mean, no one become immortal. You could still die in like an accident or something. But if you made it so people didn't age past a certain point, I mean, I would assume that number would get blown away. I don't know how you could. I don't know how you could predict for that essentially. But anyway, JMac for $20. Thank you so much, our surrogate father. JMac says, fascinating conversation. Listen, after all this philosophy talk, you guys want to come over and play Mario Kart Double Dash? My mom bought pizza bagel bites.
Yeah.
I would love to, Jay. I would love to.
You'd win, right? Mario Kart's your game.
I mean, I think I would beat you. I don't know if Christian's a secret Mario Kart champ, but
no, I've never played Mario Kart. No, it seems interesting though. Seems interesting. I haven't done gaming in a while.
That was the best. That was the best response for like a philosophy kid. It seems interesting, but I've never played.
Does seem interesting.
Okay, what games have you played, Christian, if any?
Oh, RuneScape, World of Warcraft.
RuneScape? Oh, come on now.
Team Fortress 2.
Okay, well, that's
I mean,
based.
these are games that I grew up with.
What was your main?
I grew up with a lot of these games.
What was your main class in TF2?
The pyro guy.
Oh, the worst. Oh God.
Yeah.
Dang,
no, that class is cool though. No, that class is cool though.
Well,
like fire is such an interesting element to me. Yeah.
You were the spray and pray pyro. You're like, I'm not gonna aim. I'm just gonna run forward and go.
There's this one weapon that they have. Well, it's not really a weapon, but it's like a wristwatch flamethrower. And like a jet of flame, like I want that. I'm just afraid of burning something down, but yeah, fire is interesting to me. I don't know something about it.
Maybe that was after I don't remember them having a wristwatch.
No. I mean in real life there is.
Not
TF2. Non TF2.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I played Scout and Spy like a real man. I don't know what you did, but nothing like a real man like being invisible and then backstabbing somebody. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. That's fun too.
Brandon for $2 says, none of us will live forever. That's Harry Potter nonsense. There you go.
Look at that. Holy cow.
Wow.
Coming out for the transhumanist movement.
Yes. Bobby B for $5 says, talk to Christian more often. You guys are great, but he brings a philosophical edge to the conversation I just love. A-team baby.
That was obviously delivered before the
It was.
before the kerfuffle.
Yes. Bridges for $5. Hey, Bridges says, I have to go right now, but a question for Christian. Is adding 100 years to life too much? What about 100 months, 100 seconds? Where is the line of acceptability?
You don't do it. You just don't do it.
What? I mean,
you just don't do it.
I don't see how you can make that argument and be in favor of a cure for cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, if cancer is it's an aberration, abnormality. Because in the presence of just a normal healthy human being, typical lifespan is around 75 for females, I think a little bit younger for males. So, I mean, and if you live longer than that, good for you. You might have good health or whatever, but if you do so artificially, that's the problem. I don't think there is really a line that and of course, just talking about like a chip or whatever, right? We're not talking about what? We're not talking about just eating healthy, exercising, and beating ailments, things like that. That's not what we're talking about.
What about an artificial organ?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so you're against artificial, are there full artificial organs yet, or no? We don't have that. Well,
of course they do. What are you talking about?
Someone gets like
They've had heart transplants.
Yeah, heart transplant, and it's like a pig heart or something. Isn't that like outside the bounds?
I haven't thought about it very much. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
But even then, that doesn't. I mean, who's that guy that just died? I mean, was it Rockefeller? The guy who lived to be almost like a Rockefeller. I forgot what his name. I think it was Rockefeller, either Rockefeller or Rothschild. He was a guy that lived to be 100 or so years old. And I think he did that by getting a bunch of transplants or whatever. And it ultimately didn't do much for him. I mean, death was still inevitable. And he still lived around a little bit more than the average human, but still lived around the same kind of.
I mean, 100 years for a guy, it's pretty rare, isn't it? Like some women live to be 100, but for a guy.
I think the oldest person alive right now is a woman, actually.
Yeah, I have a grandmother who's over 100, but.
Oh, good. Wow.
I hope those genes pass to me, but as a male, I am just kidding. Yeah. Brunswick Green for $20. Thanks so much. Says, if we were able to invent immortality within our limitations of nature, could that be an argument for evolution, if not artificial evolution? I'm not sure I even understand that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood it either. Like, what is?
Not what that means.
If we were able to invent immortality within our limitations of nature, could that be an argument for evolution, if not artificial evolution?
Like, aren't glasses basically like art? I mean, what is artificial evolution?
I think I'm assuming what he's saying is, if we're inventing, shouldn't things that we invent, I'm assuming this is the argument, I could be wrong. I'm assuming the argument is, since we are products of nature and evolution, isn't anything we then create also definitionally a product of nature and evolution? Right? Was that the argument that's being made?
I don't know. Not completely.
If it is, it's an interesting argument.
I mean, it's a good guess.
But I mean, maybe not strictly a product of evolution, things that we create, but obviously we are. And so by downstream effect, if there was no evolution, there'd be no human beings. If there were no human beings, there'd be no skyscrapers or whatever. So, I mean, by downstream effect, I guess so. Yeah. So, what's the significance of that? I don't know.
Well, first of all, Brunswick says correct, so thank you.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Secondly, but
good.
wouldn't that mean that, like, if we're products of nature, so everything that we create is a product of nature, wouldn't that mean that extending our life would also be a product of nature?
No. In that sense.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Nature. I mean, it's a product of natural properties, but so for example, like mothballs are products of natural properties, but they're still poisonous to life.
Sure.
So things can be a product of natural properties and still infringe upon someone's natural life. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
I mean, just look at
So, well, immortality wouldn't infringe on someone's natural life The argument
wouldn't,
would be it
but
creates,
it would extend the limitations. It would extend the limitations.
Right. Okay.
And that's the problem. Yeah.
Gotcha. Whoop, lost it. Good Emperor, thanks so much for 2 months. Free will. Seeker says, Christian, tell Adam that the quest to perfect humanity is what can lead humans to becoming Cybermen.
Yeah, that's my concern.
What is a
That's my
Cyberman?
concern.
Well,
What
we
is
couldn't
Cyberman?
really
Is this a
get.
reference that you know about or something?
Well, if by Cyberman, I'm just guessing. If he means by like a cyborg or like
Borg.
a person who is
Yeah.
infused with technology, yeah, something like that.
I think he's referencing something specific.
Oh, I don't know anything about
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Cybermen is a race of cybernetically augmented humanoids from
Oh, okay.
Doctor Who.
Okay, so.
Like,
Oh, I don't watch Doctor Who, so that's probably
Okay.
why I didn't know. If that
I haven't seen it either. I'm not into nerd shit. Now let's talk about philosophy for 4 hours.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like some nerd stuff.
I'm just kidding.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So.
Christian, I think.
Oh wait, what do you think about the sequels?
Oh no.
Oh, like what do you mean the sequels? Like the ones they just made, or
Yeah,
the
the
prequel? Like what do you mean?
No, the sequels, not the prequels.
The ones they just made.
Yeah.
I mean, beautifully shot. The cinematography is great.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the story, Disney made those under the auspices of throwing out the EU, and in my opinion, the EU was an essential part of the Star Wars experience. And anything that goes against the EU, I don't like. I have a lot of different Star Wars comic books, and there's a lot of different timelines that happen in the EU, like the Yuuzhan Vong War and the New Jedi Order. All these different things that I think continue a lot of the themes that we've seen throughout, like the mainline Star Wars stuff. And Disney kind of just said, you know what, we're just going to put all that to the backside, and I didn't like that very much. So that's my problem. And the thing is, if they had kept the EU and they had decided to be canon and go on to a line of continuity, they could have done some pretty interesting things. They could have done a lot of interesting things. But
okay, I agree completely. I think you're being too kind. I think the sequels are shit. But okay. Well, there you go. You have the correct opinion on Star Wars. That's good.
Yeah.
Satoshi was Reptilioid for 50 knock knock says, isn't the point of heaven? Oh, we were the one. William Morrison for $5 says, quote, might makes right is by definition a moral claim, Adam. It's literally in the phrase. Right is the moral term.
Okay. Does that change that nature functions under the principle of might makes right?
Well, but wouldn't you be then if you say that might makes right is a moral claim and you say that nature exists under might makes right, does that mean that you agree that might makes right is objective morality or something?
Well, no, I thought it was more claiming that I'm anthropomorphizing nature and that, just using the claim right. I mean, I wouldn't know how to say that.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming when you say might makes right, what you mean is that whatever is the strongest force is what dictates what happens. Not that is a moral or just thing. That's just the nature of reality, descriptively.
Well, you've seen predators fight as in one's trying to eat the other, right?
Yeah.
And then the one that wins is the one with the more might, more power, more strength.
Okay.
So I guess maybe strength makes right.
Well, no, the problem was not might. The problem was right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's might dictates outcome. Might dictates
that
something.
Again, that would have been the better phrasing.
Right.
But
what is it? What's
might
a better
dictates
phrasing?
Outcome.
Maybe.
Yeah, that would have been the better phrasing. But
dictates outcome. Okay.
I feel like that's not exactly a one
might
for
makes
one,
right though.
close.
I think is just like colloquially.
No, colloquially
very used a lot.
Yes.
I think it's probably in 1,000 songs.
Yeah.
I think a lot. I think most people know what might makes right means. Here, I'll look it up. Might makes right. There's probably a Wikipedia page on it.
Probably.
Might makes right or might is right is a aphorism. Someone in the chat said Adam Reed.
An aphorism.
An aphorism on the origin of morality with both descriptive and prescriptive senses. Descriptively, it asserts that a society's view of right and wrong is determined by those in
That's
power.
what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying.
With a meaning similar to history is written by the victors.
That's what I've been saying this entire time, which is why I didn't think it was appropriate to describe the wild in those terms.
So
will you apologize for calling me a sophist, please?
No, I did nothing wrong. I'm not going to
He was
apologize.
right, though.
I'm not going to apologize.
I was correct, though.
Well, first of all, Adam has a
First of all, I don't care if you're correct. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam has a no apology.
Second of all,
no kidding.
Well, I mean, are you going to apologize for me for like you're lying to me about how you were trying to like come to some reasonable understanding?
I was lying.
I was.
You were lying.
To do
you were lying your ass off. Now you're trying to manipulate trying to manipulate an apology out of me here with your sulky, sad, I'm sad look.
I'm not manipulating anything. I mean, seriously.
You are. You're totally you're trying to manipulate all of us.
You were just I'm not. Oh, whatever, Adam. Whatever.
So, do you want to go back to talking about the might makes right?
Not really.
It's very not really.
Or do you want to try to manipulate a apology out of Adam instead?
I don't care. It's in the past.
So what is the equivalent of might makes right in nature?
I'm not going to go through this again.
What?
You just read what the term meant, and we were kind of going through this. I told you that I don't think the term has a neat application in the wild because it is a term used to describe morality in human context. But for the entire time you said in the definition literally says that. So
first of all, the definition does talk about the morality thing, and this goes back to the super chat.
But
okay.
No, it's no, Adam. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it now.
Well, I mean, I have a perfect example. Like there's lions versus zebras, right? Is the same exact thing as one nation versus another. So in the moral context of human being, what's different about it?
Because lions and zebras, that's a predator-prey relationship. Human relationships are not predator-prey relationships.
Wolf,
or at least
man
stable
is
ones
wolf
are not predator.
to man.
What?
All of man's relationships.
That's what Hobbes thought. That's what Hobbes thought, and he was wrong.
Look at these.
What do you mean?
These assertions.
That's what Hobbes thought. And no, it's not. It's not.
You're totally making an assertion. You're like a lot of people might think Hobbes was right.
What do you mean when you say man is a wolf to man? What does that mean?
It means that man preys upon man. Man is a predator to other men.
And you disagree with this, Christian?
I do. I don't think it's necessarily true. Now, if you mean like in some cases it's true, then sure, in some cases it's obviously true, but it's not necessarily true. Now, Hobbes thought that every human being hated each other and that the state of nature was brutish, solitary, and short, and that we needed the government to control us so that we wouldn't kill each other. I don't agree with
I understand.
that.
I don't disagree with Hobbes, but we can still have an intelligent conversation without you shaking your head and going, "Oh no, I don't believe that, so I can't talk. I can't talk about it."
Well, first of all, that's not even what you believe, Adam.
Well, I'm just trying to come to a clearer definition.
Yes.
When the zebra goes to fight with the lion and the lion always fucking wins, it really seems like you can, what's going on there is something akin to might makes right. Is it not? I think normal people would look at that situation and say, oh, look, the law of the jungle, the law of nature, might makes right. The lion wins because that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. Don't you think?
Yeah, under the colloquial definition of might makes right.
So when David goes up against Goliath, that story is interesting because the zebra wins.
Yes, right.
Yes.
But what's the point, I guess?
Well, just the point is, look, right here, we got Christian trying to pry an apology out of me, trying to say, listen, I was right about the might makes right thing. Like it's only a philosophical thing.
Well, he was right in the most technical sense. I mean, he was right. That is the way that it's used technically.
Well, in the sense of the moral thing, but I'm asking about the natural thing, the zebra and the lion. So we can't use Mike makes right because technically it's only a thing that we can use in moral conversation. Is that doesn't make a lot of sense? You can never say might makes right when we talk about the lions.
You
and
can
the
do
zebras.
whatever you want to do, Adam. You can do whatever you want to do, Adam.
Look, he's going to go sulking again. Christian, come
I'm
on.
not sulking. I just am not going to have this conversation. It's clear that we're using words in a different way. Leave it at that.
But we're intelligent adults. We can come to an agreement on the proper words to use.
30 to 40 minutes of this, and it ended with you accusing me of being a sophist. I'm not going to go through that entire process again.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think. Okay. Well, I think we can move on.
Sitch, can you help me out? Well, I guess maybe we'll work on it later, but
yeah,
I would like to know.
Yeah.
And Christian, you seem to be very knowledgeable in philosophy. Like, props to you.
Apparently I'm a sophist.
Well, listen, sophists were very intelligent, okay? It takes a lot of intelligence.
Oh, God. All right. All right. Are you guys done?
To come up with...
It might be my time to go.
Look,
it might be my time to
let
go.
me ask... It's while we're on the top...
Thanks for coming, Christian.
Christian,
I
before,
really appreciate it.
Look, before we move on...
Hopefully you can come on again in the future and we'll have a non-contentious conversation about post-liberalism or something. Don't think we're not gonna post this clip. Christian Watson runs from fucking debate. Why are you being such a dick right now? It's like crazy to me. I can't help it, man. Why do you get? Well, it's very interesting. You Sophistry drives me insane. Well, no. Here's what it's interesting. I don't know why. You get very upset whenever anyone asks you to apologize. Like you get like violently upset by that, and I don't know why. Because it's a pro-felicity game that they're playing. Even him sulking was a game. You're being upset. Wait. You being upset about asked to apologize is some deep-seated part of your nature that existed before you knew the word pro-felicity existed. Okay? Bullshit. I don't bullshit. He knows what he's doing when he's trying to extract a public apology. And like, I didn't do anything wrong. Fuck you. You did. You called him fucking dishonest. First of all, I think he was being dishonest, and I think he was being a sophist. I don't think that's in evidence. Well, I believe it. So okay. Well, but he was. Right, I believe it until proven otherwise. When he was, listen, you can make the argument that he was not in the strictest sense. He was not right. Don't interrupt me. Okay. You can make the argument to say, listen, Christian. You are correct in terms of what might make right means specifically in this like moral sense, and therefore it wouldn't apply to animals. However, I'm sure you're willing to concede, Christian, that on a colloquial sense, it's used in this way, and you understand what I mean when I say this. Okay, you could have said that, and the conversation would have continued forward. Well, why didn't you say that? Because you blew up when the conversation broke down. What do you mean? You don't for a minute believe that he was being honest about it. I mean, I'm going to go back and listen to it. Like whole might makes right. I don't understand what you mean by might makes right because I'm this philosophical big brain fucking giga chat. Wait, but is nonsense. I don't agree nonsense. But wait a minute. Well, there's two things. Even if you think it's nonsense, you can move the conversation forward productively, right? Even if you think that the person is you can't. Yes, you can't. Dude, he was dodging like a mofo, okay? There was no way that conversation was going to move forward. Well, I take it back because you were able to move the conversation forward productively because, let's face it, Sitch has a lot more patience than me, okay? That is true. I don't have the patience for this. I don't know what you mean by survive. Now I'm using his terms. I don't know what you mean by might makes right. That makes no sense to me. Here's why I have patience, okay? It's because even if, to me, if I say something and someone says, I don't understand, and it seems inconceivable to me that they don't understand, right. I know that I've been in the exact same situation. And we were in the exact same situation last week. Right. But I've been in the exact same we were in the exact same situation with this conversation where Christian would say something that would be like a very basic term. And I had to be like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean when you say this term? So, especially when you're having like a high level philosophical moral conversation, I think that basic terms do need to be defined. I mean, this is literally why Sitch's law exists, is that people are arguing over definitions and they don't realize it's what's happening.
They want to
So-
do a poll on whether or not Christian is a sophist. So I
don't want to do that poll.
I don't either,
I don't wanna
but
do that poll.
they're
And I
demanding
don't-
it in the chat.
I don't want to do that poll. I don't think it's true. I think what was happening, and I said what I thought was happening. I think Christian is unwittingly inserting a lot of subjective
Oh, of course.
preferences
Yes, of course.
into a moral system that he is arguing is based on objectivity. I think that's what's happening. I don't think he realizes it. So that's why I'm saying I wouldn't call him a sophist for doing something like that. I mean, it's literally how everyone exists and argues, positions. They argue what they think is true. So I just I don't think it's productive. Even if you think it's happening, I don't think it's productive to sort of like start attacking someone like
I
that.
was happy. I was super happy when you took over and you were going to talk for a long time because it was interesting. I only chimed in because I didn't want him to have to go before you read super chats because I knew a bunch of people asked questions. So that's the only reason why I was trying to like wrangle the conversation in short. I didn't know how long he had to stay, but I thought it was an interesting conversation. Like,
yeah,
even like drama aside.
Well, drama, now you can title the video Adam Gets Triggered, and maybe that will get more views because no one would watch this video before that. But
do we even really want to clip this out? No one cares about this.
Everyone cares. It's just listen.
And everybody's all they're gonna do is just get angry at me.
I know, but I mean, it's up to you. I don't really care. But I'm just saying, like, I thought the conversation we had with Christian was very interesting. I also knew that no one would watch it. But that's fine because no one watches any of our clips, so I don't care about that. But if I don't know if you want to put Adam Gets Triggered, Christian runs away, to get views, do whatever the fuck you want, but get people to view it.
I'm not gonna do that.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
maybe you'll just cut. Maybe you should just cut it right before right when you said we should wrap this conversation up, and I stupidly said no. You should just cut it right there.
You know how to do the magic search on Google? I swear, the Twitter argument that we had was exactly the same as the real life argument that we had, and I believe I ended up calling him a sophist in that argument as well.
Oh my God, no!
Yeah. So, but I mean, I reached out to him to come on the show, and obviously all was forgiven. So I don't think.
Well, did you have this argument recently, or was this like a long time ago?
I mean, this was probably like a couple months ago. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to find the tweets, but I don't even know how to find my own tweets on. And I was having the conversation.
You just do an advanced. You type an advanced search on Google. It brings this like box, and then you could type in your name, and then you type in like the keywords you're looking for.
Right.
So you type in like sophist.
I don't think I've called anyone. Well, I might have called Vosh a sophist a few times. Vosh
is a sophist.
Before he so rudely ran away. I mean, I wanted to talk to him about whether or not he thought Vosh was a sophist, but we didn't get a chance.
Right. Yeah, but you gotta let things go. Just let it go. Let it go.
What do you mean?
You gotta let it go.
I did let it go.
You did not let it go.
You're not giving me any credit here.
I mean, yeah, he did bring it up again.
He's the one that, it was so gone. And then he was like, you should apologize to me. And I was like, dude, fuck you.
Why does that bother you so much?
Because it is a manipulation tactic that people do because, like, they want to extract some public apology for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is what an apology is, Adam. Yes. You define an apology. Yes.
First, I did nothing wrong. Okay? We're having an internet debate.
Well, he didn't feel that way.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck how he feels. Okay? I don't. Grow up.
Okay.
Put your big boy pants on.
Let me put on my Mahler hat for a second. Adam. Okay, listen to me. If you're having a debate with someone and you define something one way and they define something the other way, and then you look it up and it turns out you were wrong and they were right in how they defined things. Were you not wrong in that situation?
I was not wrong.
Did you not do something wrong?
Listen, I was talking about the zebra and the fucking...
Well, you read the definition. You were wrong according to the definition you read.
That's not true.
It is true. What do you mean?
There has to be some sort of definition that maps onto the zebra and the lion. And I would assume it's
I'm
might
sure there
makes
is,
right.
yes.
Yeah. Look,
Right.
not only that, I read the first part of the Wikipedia page. Down here, it could exonerate me. Who knows?
Well, no, but you would still be wrong then for assuming that he was acting out of bad faith.
He was acting out of bad faith, and I'm fucking 100% sure when I go back and listen to the stream.
Okay.
Look, Sitch, you had to stop him and point out, no, you're changing the words that Adam is saying and changing the argument substantively by doing it. What? No, I'm not. What do you mean?
Yeah,
No, I'm totally innocent here.
Listen.
Look,
you are correct. Wait. Here's my problem. Here's my problem.
Don't let these bad faith mofos walk all over you, okay? Sitch,
Wait a minute.
Need to nut up.
Wait a minute. Okay. First of all, you're right. I do need to. In some situations. This is not one of those situations. Okay.
Well, no, this is a perfect stream because we have the side-by-side comparison to the honey. You get more flies with honey than you do with.
No. What I'm saying is, if you feel as you did, and I agree with you, that might makes right does not map onto survival of the fittest. They sort of could be similar, but they do mean, I would say, specifically different things.
Hugely different things.
Okay. You can just explain that like normally and the conversation can continue without like blowing up.
I couldn't because he kept interrupting me.
Could. Okay, so you...
Look, I couldn't...
You could do it. I have faith in you, Adam. Okay. I'm not even sure why that's it. I'm not even sure why that's it.
It is really a patience thing. It really is. Like he was being very combative. He was not being like, we're going to come to some understanding together. That's total bullshit. That is complete and utter bullshit.
Okay, wait a minute. So maybe,
even with you,
right,
who had the kid gloves on, he was not doing that. And I
did not have the kid gloves on at all. I don't know.
And I was paying attention.
Okay. I think we're perceiving the conversation very differently.
Every conversation is perceived differently by everyone.
I understand that.
Yes.
Because even though I was not being combative in my tone of voice. I don't think I was. I did not have kid gloves on. I'm literally challenging his fundamental beliefs about existence. This is a very hard conversation to have with a person. And maybe that's why I'm having more patience and deference to these sorts of like conversations.
This is the perfect example, though, of how much optics matter, because I think I totally agree with you. Optically, I'm your best friend. I'm just here having an innocent conversation with you. But is it rhetorically or
no? It would be the opposite. Rhetorically, it'd be substantively.
Substantively, yeah. Substantively, I mean, you were going for the jugular. I was loving it. But see, the whole conversation about emotion and where emotions come from, I was like, oh, dude, he's way wrong on this. But
well, it depends what your goal is. I mean, my goal is to continue the conversation.
My goal was to end the conversation as quickly as possible. If that's your goal, then you succeeded, I guess. Yeah. Then I guess because I don't like if somebody is going to be quibbling over the definition of might makes right and not even be able to get to the zebra versus the lion thing, I don't want to talk to them. I really don't. I don't care. Like, it's so simple. It's so basic. This is the accusation of sophistry, because I do think everything he was doing is sophistry. I honestly do, because I don't understand what you mean by might makes right. Like, he literally said, "Oh, you're talking about the law of the jungle," which says he knows what I mean by might makes right in nature.
Well, then that means he's not being sophistry. And the reason I don't think he was being sophistry is maybe, and you missed this, he said, I don't think might makes right applies to nature because that applies to, like, you're making a moral claim that strength dictates morality, which he said he doesn't think animals operate according to that principle of morality. Okay.
Animals do not have morality, and we did not even get to that because
I understand.
He ran away.
What he said is not
fear.
Sophistry. Then okay, but you understand that you agree with him. What he just said, you literally agree with it. You just, when you said might makes right, you didn't mean the right part to have the moral component to it. That's literally the only contention.
The sophistry component comes in when he says, we're working together to come to some understanding with one another. That was not what was happening there.
First of all, that's what people say about every conversation, and that's never what happens in any conversation.
Of course,
what happens in conversation
we're
is
having an internet debate. Is what's going on.
No, what happens in a conversation is you're working together to try to make someone understand your position. That's all that's happening.
Right.
In a conversation.
No, he was working as hard as he could to misunderstand my position and to misunderstand your position. I don't
think so at all. I didn't feel at any point in the conversation that there was any intentional, like when he was wrong, what he said about me saying that people evolve to do certain jobs, I don't think that was intentional. I think he just misunderstood. I understood how he could come to that misunderstanding, and when I explained it again, it seemed like he accepted that's not what I meant. And he said, "Oh, I thought he said I agree with you," when I explained exactly what it was. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to be more charitable with people. So it seems more beneficial to me.
First of all,
we can move on.
I give charity in kind.
I know you do.
When I don't receive charity, I don't give it. And I didn't receive any charity in that conversation.
Your perception, because I'm assuming that you were getting agitated through what you perceived was intentional dodging throughout the whole conversation, which was not my remote experience of that conversation whatsoever.
With you, he was not intentionally dodging. With me, he was intentionally dodging. With you, he wasn't intentionally dodging because you optically were being besties with him.
Well, where was he dodging with you before the might makes right then?
I don't know. I have to go back and listen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The might makes right is pretty much the only way that he was dodging.
Well, no, I'm saying it felt like for you to be upset at that would mean that you were like it was building, as opposed to it just being this just happened and now suddenly the energy of the conversation has shifted.
Well, I mean, he before you jumped in, and I did put in the chat, like he's making all of these assertions, and that was driving me crazy. I'm like, you're making all these assertions, and you're not even like when he went to the Hobbes thing, asserting that Hobbes is wrong. Like that's a giant assertion. You can't just say Hobbes was wrong. I mean, I guess you can because that's your opinion, but you can't lay it down like it's factually correct. Like we all know Hobbes was wrong. Was he? I thought that was the whole point of philosophy is to argue over Hobbes and Rousseau from here to infinity.
Well, I don't know if his conception of Hobbes is correct, but assuming it is, you don't even agree with that. I mean, we would argue that men are not wolves towards each other. Men are wolves towards an outgroup, essentially.
Well, but
that's why you'd even use wolves too. Wolves are part of a pack.
Man is a wolf to man is a common phrase that has been around for I'm pretty sure ever. Who came up with
right? But what does that mean?
Man is a wolf. It means that that when I just type in man as a wolf and it's already jumps to man as a wolf to man. It means that when men encounter one another out in the wilderness, they don't go, oh look, a friend. They go, oh look, someone that might try to kill me.
That's not always the case.
Not always the case.
Right. Well, it depends on what we're talking about. I thought you meant from a natural position.
Yeah, but he was basically asserting that, look, he said, and I remember this part, he said, oh, you're talking about a predator-prey relationship. That doesn't happen with man. And I'm like,
well, that does.
What the fuck was slavery? Yeah.
I know.
How is that not sophistry? Look, that is total
I don't think it's
sophistry.
I don't think it's sophistry, but I think the argument he's making necessitates him to use language in a very specific way.
He's just
confusing
dodging.
that for sophistry.
He wants to say dumb things and get away with it, and I'm not having it.
Okay.
He needs to.
Well, we can move on.
He needs to talk about shit he knows stuff about, and not wander into the areas where he doesn't know jack shit.
Okay, we can move on.
Do
you want me to keep reading super chats related to this segment?
I'll apologize to you all day, Sitch. I'm taking it too far. I know I am.
I mean, you didn't do anything wrong to me. You don't need to apologize to me.
Well, I just obviously, I do feel like I do feel
Okay.
Look, I'm gonna look up sophistry.
You're entitled. You're
First
entitled
of
to your
all,
feelings, I guess.
I don't. I'm glad we didn't talk about any of the stuff I wanted to talk about because I completely question the credibility of Christian on everything now.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, you brought up the topic in the first place of
Well, no, we got off on it,
natural
and you were
rights.
going
But,
down that path.
well, no, that was because you were like, oh, what were we debating about on Twitter? And then that's kind of sparked the whole natural
The use
rights
of
conversation.
fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving. Now,
Right.
so intention is hard. Like
That's why, yeah.
I
right.
may have to retract the sophistry because it was definitely. Well, wait. I guess unintentional. You can't be unintentionally deceiving.
No, I
This
don't
is
think so.
this is so constricting because 90% of the behavior people have is unintentional.
Yes, but that's why, and I literally read that definition. While
Did
Christian was
you?
still here.
Why didn't you bring
Yes.
it up?
I read it. I guess but you were too elephant to hear, I guess. Okay. You
Did
could
you?
only hear the sound of your trumpet.
Okay.
I literally read the definition you just fucking read. And I said what you literally just said.
Yeah.
Okay.
The intention is a tough word. Okay.
I said it has
maybe
intention to deceive.
maybe he's not a sophist. Maybe he's
Right.
just an NPC.
Well, but listen, we're all, well, not me, but everyone else is an NPC. Okay.
Christian, I take it back. You're not a sophist.
There you
You're
go.
a non-player character.
I hope that's better, Christian. But no, I mean that's why calling, when I say Vosh is a sophist, I think it's I think he is aware that he's being deceptive in his speech.
Okay, so you think Bosch is an actual sophist?
Yes, I think Vosh
when
is
he
a
says
sophist.
agua.
When he says agua, he knows it's a fucking dumb fuck argument. He understood like that whole conversation with I forget the guy's name, the philosophy teacher about gender was all sophistry because he understands exactly what is being talked about and he's overly complicating it. Now, I don't think that's what was happening with Christian.
Oh, I do
At
think
any
he was
point in
over
the conversation.
complicating it, but not
He was,
intentionally.
but I think it was necessary because I think the conversation of natural rights is actually an incredibly complicated topic.
You can't say that's a predator-prey relationship, but that doesn't happen with people, and like that.
Why
that's
I don't
ridiculous.
remember I don't think we ever got to the bottom of that, but
and we weren't going to get to the bottom.
I mean,
of
I
it.
think my first question that I think maybe one of my first questions is, and this is what I said when we had our last conversation about natural rights. I forget we had someone, I think we had a viewer come on. We had a conversation about natural rights, and it was basically why I was able to ask the Pluto question, which I think is what's going on with natural rights.
The Pluto nailed it, and he totally ran from that.
I understand that, but I think that's really what the natural crowd is doing. That they're selecting a group of things that happen descriptively, and they're saying, okay, this is natural rights, which you can do. I'm fine with someone doing that, but that doesn't necessitate that those natural rights are basically divinely, objectively, the correct framework, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's kind of, and maybe, we didn't get to this part, but I think maybe my contention is I think natural rights are fine as a descriptor. I don't think they're right as a prescription. I think they're right as a description, not as a prescription.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Well, let me be clear. I think they're not right as a prescription in terms of claiming they're objectively a prescription. I think they are right as a prescription in terms of I think it's generally very beneficial for you to organize our society around the concept of natural rights.
Which I agreed on. Christian agreed on. Everyone agreed.
Yeah, everyone agrees on that. Well, not everyone, but most people agree on that. So
yeah.
as a good enforcement mechanism. So anyway, we can move on from that.
Still an interesting conversation.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. More interesting. Well, I don't know. More interesting than the post-liberalism stuff.
Sure. I agree. Contrast for 2 Aussie bucks says, Adam, you dropped this. Hands Adam fedora.
Why do I get the fedora?
Because I guess that was for the atheist part of the conversation. But,
oh, okay. Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. When you tip your fedora, it's generally because you're being like atheist or something.
Yeah.
Brain for $2 says Adam's anti-Christian bigotry on display.
I'm anti-Christian bigotry?
Apparently, according to Brain.
Okay.
So, Majin for $2 says, Adam, I'm the anti-theist here, and you've lost me. What was that in context to, Majin? Maybe this was a heaven conversation. I don't know.
Maybe.
Kovar in chat says,
heaven,
Adam is a good boy, and he didn't do nothing wrong.
Of course I didn't. Look, this is an internet debate. Insults are going to be thrown.
That's true.
Like, I don't know. Everything will be fine. I'm certain of it. If Christian doesn't
Adam
want
bullying a POC.
What? What happened?
You racist.
Oh, are you think if Christian pulls the race card, oh my God.
He's not going to, but I'm going to.
That would be hilarious.
That would be funny. Nova Leon for $5 says, this quote might makes right argument reminds me of Adam's tiff with Sargon and Destiny about the is-ought problem. I think Adam is missing something. I think it's the opposite.
Who is that person? They're getting banned from the chat. That person's fucking gone.
I think it was the opposite. I think Christian was missing something in that. I think in the is-ought thing, you were not describing what you were trying to talk about clearly, but I think in the might makes right thing, it was the opposite. I think what you said made perfect sense to me. So
yeah, it was simple as can be.
Right.
This is the thing. I
was unfamiliar with the might makes right was tied into the morality claim too. I didn't realize that. And it sounds.
I didn't know that either. Yeah, obviously.
Right. Sounds obvious now that we say it, but I didn't conceptualize it that way.
Yeah, and I do think there is some weakness in the charge of anthropomorphizing nature, but there's got to be a way to talk about it without anthropomorphizing nature, and I don't think survival of the fittest is that way, because people animals can survive by being good hiders.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is where I always fall into the trap when we talk to people about natural rights, because it seems like some people say natural rights are just an objective descriptor of things. And I say, oh, I agree with that. But then there's some people who say it's also a prescription for how things should be organized. And that's where I stumble upon. I'm like, is it? I mean, you could say it's a useful prescription. I don't see how you can say it's an objective prescription. And sometimes when you're having that conversation, people kind of jump between the two things. And,
yes.
And part of what I was trying to get out of Christian, which I didn't, at least the way that I understood, was I didn't understand. He was kind of jumping from objective description to objective prescription, and I never couldn't get the connective tissue to explain that jump. But
to you, or for him to explain it to you?
Well, in the conversation, I tried to get to that connective tissue, and I felt like we didn't get to that connective tissue.
Do you feel like he had that connective tissue, he just wasn't explaining it, or there really wasn't any?
I don't think it exists.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I'm assuming it doesn't exist. But.
I'm in the same boat. That's where the cognitive dissonance comes in, because it's it's not there. Yeah.
Right. Brain for $2 says Adam is about to cry.
I'm about to cry? Come on now. This is the thing that is the most frustrating thing about the internet that I'm discovering. This is, I guess, I never really realized this, but it is ubiquitous and very unnerving. You kind of have to learn to deal with it. Everybody perceives everything, perceives interactions completely differently.
Yes.
Yeah. So they start articulating their perceptions of those interactions, and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not how it happened at all.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely. But see, that's why I try to always err on the side of assuming good faith, is because I know that everyone perceives things so wildly differently.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm to the point where I'm a little nihilistic about it. I don't think.
Stop using your.
There's nothing that can be done about it. Well, there's nothing that can be done about it. It's like the nice thing about you and I is our conversations are collaborative all the way, because we've kind of.
But we've known each other and had conversation. We've talked more than most people have ever talked to anyone because we run a show where we talk to each other for 8 hours 2 times a week. Okay. So.
I know, but it's interesting, and this did come up in the conversation. I didn't say anything, but I knew you were thinking about it. Like Christian was pitching authenticity over sincerity.
I know. I was going to say you got to look up Hans Moeller because he was talking all about. Because what I was going to ask him when he was going through the whole thing, but we kind of got sidetracked because he brought up a different point. What I was going to ask was, well, wait a minute. Why is being authentic objectively a moral position that anyone should have?
Which I don't
is that?
I don't think he would have an answer for, and he hasn't thought about it as deeply as we have. But he also,
well, I wouldn't have thought about it if it wasn't for Hans
Moeller, obviously.
Yeah, because he said, he brought up and go, oh, you're right. Why are we doing this? You know.
Well, not only that, he also brought up pro-felicity and was against it, which was also interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
So and this is a thing that I've recognized in our situation, our pro-felicity is kind of tied together, which allows us to have these collaborative conversations in a way that I don't think is necessarily safe for other people. Because, when Destiny starts talking to someone, it is kind of a contest. And there are, like, everyone is kind of out to, like, make him look bad. When you and I are actively out to make each other, avoid looking bad.
Yeah, but that's because we run a show together.
Right. But it completely goes, it goes to the pro-felicity thing. My pro-felicity is tied up in your pro-felicity.
Right. But what I'm saying, yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Right?
Yes.
That's exactly.
But without, and it's funny because, and I couldn't really say this, but when Christian was visibly hurt, okay, and I don't deny, I feel like he was visibly hurt, and I do feel bad about it. I didn't necessarily know how to navigate out of it, but I did my best. I just got accused of being condescending instead. So, but I tried. Okay. I think the reason he was shaken was because of pro-felicity, not because of authenticity. Like I think if we had this conversation, just the three of us sitting in a room privately, and I called him a sophist, I don't think he would have lost his shit over it.
I don't think so. I mean, if he said it was true that he likes us, then it's like that's what upsets him. That someone that he likes and is listened to is like shitting on him. Last time
I fought with him on Twitter, I called him a sophist. He still came on the show. Come on. Okay. And I didn't even remember. I'm only remembering that I called him a sophist because, like, having this conversation reignited the entire argument that we were having. This is the thing that bothers me.
Yeah.
You will propose, like it's just like, I can't think of what it's called. When you improv, that's the word. Improv. It's just like improv. The rule of improv is yes and, right? You go with it. You're like, yes and. You don't go, no, 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 no. Right. Well, the entire debate, it's no, 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 no with Christian, which it's like he doesn't even want to entertain. Look, we threw out hypotheticals and he was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, but the hypotheticals are challenging his fundamental worldview and his argument.
Yes, but
so obviously he's going to say no. He's not going to say you guys are correct. I'm changing everything about the way I perceive reality. Like,
and this is why I got triggered when he was trying to say that we were coming to some greater knowledge together. I'm like, bull fucking shit, dude. You are not trying to come to some greater knowledge.
I mean, that's kind of just like a tropey thing people say.
Yeah, you're sitting here. Desperately trying to protect your worldview. You're not willing to engage on anything.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I would assume that we are both also trying to protect our worldview.
Okay, but the advantage that we have is that our worldview is correct.
I was gonna say.
how?
I mean, you're not wrong. But,
I know. How? Oh man, how egomaniacal does that sound?
But it's true. It's just 100% true.
But the reason I feel comfortable saying that is because we have had these conversations and we have tested our worldview. Because we have. I mean, I've legitimately questioned my.
I'm sure. Well, first of all, I'm sure Christian's debated lots of people and tested his worldview on this topic.
I'm not sure that he has, to be honest with you. I
I'm
mean,
sure it
basic
has.
hypotheticals we're not even engaged in.
I'm sure he has. Just because you don't engage with a hypothetical in a way that you want doesn't mean that he's not debated the topic before.
Brain says this is all egoism. I mean, you're not wrong, Brain. Man is a wolf to man.
Yes, there you go.
Very,
Adam was
very
like,
true.
you know that episode of Community where they're debating whether humans were good or evil?
Yeah.
Adam is like, he's like, listen, I was just proving my point. I was just winning the argument by proving that man is a wolf to man.
That's a predator-prey relationship. That doesn't exist in nature. Oh, are you sure?
Are you sure?
Are you?
It's happening right now.
Are you sure about that?
Okay.
Look, Christian makes great videos. I encourage you to watch his series.
Yeah.
I was spamming his channel in the chat. Hopefully all of you subscribe to his channel.
Right.
We'll put his channel in the description.
I want you all to subscribe to Christian and comment on the next video and say, it's classes disgusting.
Well, that will probably. I want you. I would ask you to comment "A Team Reigns Supreme," but I'll probably get targeted for hate speech.
You'd be called a bully if you say that. Yeah.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
I'm like, we probably shouldn't do that.
Okay.
He'll probably
That's why
say
you
we're
say
trying
S
to-
class is best class.
Why are you bullying me? No bully. No bully, Adam.
Well, it's interesting too because
no bully.
you know that we've had arguments on stream that I'm pretty sure would end friendships for other people.
Of course, but
So, I mean,
we have to stick together.
Well, no, I think that we are unique to some extent in how we're able to like have these like huge arguments and I'm just like, whatever. Like, let's move on.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's unique. I don't think most people have that. I mean, more men than women do, obviously on average, but even a lot of guys don't have that ability, I don't think.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're both older. I mean, obviously, I'm much older, so I
Yeah.
think that helps. Christian's obviously in his 20s, so everything is like.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm just too lazy to hold grudges, I think.
I'm not a grudger either. Like
Yeah.
I don't hold grudges.
I mean, you do in the conversation, but maybe.
What do you mean? Look. So
got him, chat. Got him.
The person who Christian brought it up again.
Okay.
He did. You saw him.
And you
do
brought it up like 3 times before that.
Yeah, I was bringing it up trying to diffuse the situation.
Yeah. In the most, like, the worst fucking way possible.
Oh
You're
my
like,
God.
Adam is like slapping the guy, like let's be friends. Slap. Slap.
Oh my God.
So I called you autistic. I was like, what's going on here?
You
You're
called me.
supposed to be the social one, not
You
me.
called me
okay?
autistic.
Yeah, I was like, I'm supposed to be the autistic one here, Adam. What's going on?
I have my patients have their limits, so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We need a poll for Adam apologizing. Submit. What? I mean, what do you
Should
mean?
Adam apologize?
Whether I
Do you
should
wanna have that
apologize?
poll?
We can do that poll. I don't care.
Okay. I wasn't going.
Hopefully, it's more than 80%, so I can tell all you to fuck off too. I'm not gonna apologize.
How do you defuse a bomb by planting another one beside it? That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good question. We needed a do we actually I take that back. I don't want a no apologies emoji. I don't want that.
Is chat completely divided? I mean, I was kind of half paying attention. I did
So what?
on the thing that look, I'm in the world now where I'm gonna assume people are gonna have different takes.
Yes.
I think I'm open to the charge if I was being rude. I don't deny that. Yes,
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
But I feel completely justified and like I said, I give in kind.
Adam shouldn't apologize to the weak. Might makes right.
Yeah, exactly. There you
I
go.
like it. There you go. Chitachi says, Adam, we still love you.
Bra
Thank you,
moment.
Chitachi.
I like bra moment. He says, no, Adam, you're a Giga Chad. Well,
There you go.
That's nice.
There you go.
I'm gonna.
Satoshi
raw
was
moment must
reptilioid
be
for 50
18.
knock knocks. Says, you need to get someone with a disability on stream for bullying since Adam is working his way up the intersectional hierarchy. Well, listen, we already have, we've had Doomer on all the time. What are you talking about?
I wanted to have a.
Get fucked, Doomer. I see you in the chat.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.